Okay, the hour of 6 o'clock upon us. We are going to begin this regular city council meeting. I'd like to welcome everyone that is here with us tonight. Appreciate you being here and joining us for this fine evening. We'll see how many of you are still here at the end of the evening. But we'd like to begin this meeting with an invocation offered by Pastor Beth Stockett, and I hope I said that right, of the Crossroads Community Church of Caldwell. And following the invocation, if you'd please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to be part of a city that so deeply cares for its people. We thank you for your goodness, your graciousness to us. We pray for your wisdom through these conversations, the opportunity that we have to move forward as a community, unified and with the best interest of those who live here, Lord. We are so thankful for you and we love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you so very much for that beautiful prayer, Pastor. We appreciate that and you coming down and spending some time with us this evening. Madam Clerk, if you would please call the roll.
Doty?
Here.
Dottie?
Here.
Register?
Here.
McGee?
Here.
Allgood?
Here.
Williams?
Here. Very good. So all city council members are accounted for. So Councilor Register is joining us via Zoom this evening, still fighting the bug, and we appreciate you fighting it there, not here with us. So glad to have you on Zoom, and we will not forget about you. So Councilor Doty is going to nudge me if I do and keep me in line. So feel free to speak up and reach out and let us know you're there. Are there any conflict of interest declarations from any members of the council regarding an item on the agenda this evening? Okay. So we do have two special presentations tonight. So the first one is a report from the Idaho State Department of Agriculture regarding the Japanese beetle. And I'm guessing we have somebody here for that. So if you'd like to come forward, and if you don't mind just stating your name, and then the mic is yours.
Absolutely. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Andrea Thompson. I am representing the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. I am joined this evening by Deputy Director Lloyd Knight, and appreciate the Mayor, City Council members for the opportunity to speak with you this evening about an invasive species threat to Idaho agriculture and production areas that has been found here in the Caldwell area. Japanese beetle, as its name would imply, is native to Japan, was first documented in the United States, in the eastern United States in the early 1900s. Adult beetles have shiny green head with copper-colored wing covers and the body about the size of a fingernail, and they fly from May to September. These adults will congregate and they will devour over 300 different types of plants. They do not have a discriminate food palette and have a voracious appetite for some of our top agricultural commodities. That includes hops and grapes, apples, cherries, peaches, as well as corn, beans, peas, and their number one favorite out of your garden is roses. From July to September, these adults will start their life cycle over by laying eggs in the turf. Those grubs will overwinter to eat those grass roots, and in heavy infestations will destroy your turf. You can literally roll up dead sod like carpet. These adult beetles can cause damage to our high dollar commodities. And so in areas where these beetles occur, a grower's only option is to utilize weekly chemical treatments during the flight period to minimize damage. Organic production is particularly hard hit in those infested areas, and production in Idaho would not be sustainable if this pest is not eradicated. So what does this mean for Caldwell and for Idaho? Since the early 1990s, federal and state protections have been implemented to prevent spread to western states. And in 2012, an infestation broke out in Boise with 56 beetles that exploded to more than 3,000 the next year. At the time, this was the largest outbreak in the West and the first eradication effort ever undertaken in the Pacific Northwest. From 2013 to 2018, the ISDA conducted an eradication protocol with annual pesticide applications to turf in 16 parks and more than 3,000 residential and commercial properties. The last year that any Japanese beetle were trapped in Boise was in 2018, and with no beetles found since, the Boise eradication was the largest successful eradication effort of Japanese beetle ever documented in the United States. Without support and participation from industry, from city partners, from public to treat hundreds of acres of private properties, parks, and golf courses, that eradication would not have been successful or even possible. However, that's not the end of the story. In 2021, there was another discovery of Japanese beetle in a Caldwell cemetery, and we expanded trap zones in 2022 with find of 77 beetles. This clearly indicated a new infestation and the first of its kind in Caldwell. It is located at the center of a residential neighborhood and within a 1-mile radius thereof, right up against agricultural land. It is located just north of Highway 2026 and I-84 in Caldwell. Trying to repeat the successful plan from Boise, in Caldwell, we are looking to treat 1,000 properties and at no cost to affected owners. But again, without the cooperation from the public, the invasive species would be left unchecked and could carry very heavy economic impacts to our #1 industry in Idaho. Our agricultural producers would have a limited ability to produce those top commodities and or stop or slow down trade. So final points is that Japanese beetle is a hot topic in every western state, and you can help protect Idaho agriculture by going to our website at agri.idaho.gov to see if you're in the treatment zone and find out more information about Japanese beetle and the treatments that are being used. If you're also in the treatment zone, please send us your consent form to get the treatment taken care of. If you're not within the treatment zone, be on the lookout for Japanese beetles. Report any that you may find to the ISDA. And lastly, stay informed and help spread the message. You can visit our Facebook page. We have up-to-date information being shared as well there in social media. And again, in conclusion, just eradication is only possible with help from the public. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate you coming. And somebody asked me earlier today, what do you know about the Japanese beetle? I said, not much. But by the end of today, I'll know a whole lot more, and I do. So thank you for that. And if you don't mind, I think, Debbie, I'm sure we have your contact information. We'd love to get you in touch with our public information officer, Char Jackson, so that we can get the word out. Like you said, I think the biggest part is just getting people involved and a part of that, know what's going on. So we appreciate you coming and taking some time for that. And we'll make sure we get that information and get Char on that.
I got a question.
Oh, yes. Yeah, go right ahead, Councilor Stoddard.
Does this mean you're gonna, put out root knot nematode to kill the larvae?
Yep, none of that. Not effective, that's for sure, but thank you.
Have they tried that at all?
There is information available that use nematode and other targeted pests that have been successful as management options, but not as eradication options.
Because they'd be concerned about spreading that in potatoes, obviously, but especially the gardens.
Thank you.
So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Appreciate that, Councilor Stoddard. Okay, thank you so much again. Really do appreciate it. Our next special presentation is in regards to the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, recognition of some of our wonderful street department employees. We have Paul Alsup, Robert Bob Nelson, David Renteria, Stan Bland, and Cresta Smoot. I don't know if did I say that right? I don't think I've Smout. I've never said your last name before. I apologize. But anyway, so who are we turning the time over to for this? Oh, right there. Perfect. Yes, please come forward. We love to recognize our employees. So.
All right. Well, my name is Lisa Popoff. I'm here representing LTAC. I was just going to give a little bit of background. First off, thank you for allowing us to be here to present these awards to your staff. So just a little background, our overall mission is to advocate, support, and train all local highway jurisdictions in the state. So as part of this training, we offer classes primarily in the spring and the fall. These classes cover a wide variety of topics, including safety, professional development, and the largest portion being construction and maintenance techniques. Most of these courses have an exam that require an 80% to pass. So there are 2 levels to our program right now, the Road Scholar and the Road Master. The Road Scholar includes approximately 80 hours of instruction, 7 core classes, including roadway materials, pavement maintenance and preservation, flagger certification, and 4 electives. Each student has 4 years to complete this level. Road Scholars are presented with a certificate, a hat, and an engraved Leatherman tool. So there's 4 employees here today. You already kind of ran through them all, but there's 4 here today at the Road Scholar level, and I'll bring them up here in a second. The second program is the Road Master. That builds upon the Road Scholar program. Again, it's another 80 hours of instruction. They take classes, 4 core classes: roadway drainage, environmental BMPs, speed limits, speed zones, and 5 electives. Again, they have 4 years to complete this level. So they're presented today with a certificate and a Carhartt jacket, and we have 1 Road Master here today. So if you don't mind, I'd like to bring them up right now and give them their awards. Road Scholars are Robert Nelson, if you'd like to come up, David Renteria, Stan Bland, and Cresta Smout. And our 1 Road Master is Paul Alsop.
Yeah, no problem on that one. So the green jacket's got nothing on you, Paul, so. Very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Paul. Krista or Paul, do you want
Appreciate it.
to say anything, or? Paul, she designated you, Paul, so. So Krista said that she designated you to say a few words. Designated.
Oh, designated. Well, I mean, me personally, I just would like to thank the city for, you know, providing the funding for the training for all the employees. The goal is to get all of our department employees, including our administrative assistant. I mean, that's unprecedented, really, I think. I don't know of any others. But getting everybody the training, because this really is, even for new employees, it kind of gets them a little more of an edge in the amount of time of 4 years to learn a lot of the things that they wouldn't otherwise. So it is a very good avenue, and we appreciate LTAC for the opportunities and the training. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you and all the staff at the city. Great department. And thank you to LTAC also for being here to recognize you and commend you on doing that. And yes, I agree, it's awesome that Krista got in and did that, and so congratulations to all 4 of you for accomplishing those great things. Okay. Very good. So we have our sign-up sheet for audience participation. We have nobody signed up for that. So that'll move us onto the consent calendar, and I believe we do have an amendment to that. Council President Doty, if you'll please read that for us.
I'd like to make a motion. Amendments to the consent calendar. Move consent calendar item number 4 to new business as item 10A for further discussion, and add an executive session after the mayor's comments. Executive sessions pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74206, subsection 1C, for the purpose of discussing the acquisition of or an interest in real property not owned by a public agency.
Very good. So we have a motion for amendment to the consent calendar, to the agenda as noted. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a second, motion from Counselor Doty and a second from Counselor Stoddard. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That motion passes. So the agenda has been amended. So do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
So moved.
And a second?
Second?
A motion from Counselor Stoddard and a second from Counselor Doty for approval of the consent calendar as amended. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Stonick,
Yes.
Register, Yes. McGee. Alden,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Doty.
Yes. Tonight.
Oh, we've got, sorry, Angie, I didn't see you over there, I apologize, so. Very good, okay. We do, we definitely do, so we'll get it tried out here soon. Okay, very good, so that moves us on to our old business. And so this is continued action item. Appreciate Mr. Orton being here this evening. So this is consider a resolution authorizing purchase of a 2024 T480 Kenworth plow truck through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Alliance. On that, I believe he's also going to have August help him out, who is our street superintendent. So appreciate August being here, looking wonderful as usual with that amazing beard. So very good. The time is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So you may know your street superintendent, August Medlin here. He's doing a great job. He's been the manager of the street department for about 2 years. And I've been really pleased with his performance. He is going to address the council about this item tonight. So turn it over to August.
Council and Mayor. Initially, I think what we wanted to do in purchase of this truck was to replace an older dump truck slash snow plow slash sander, which is typically what we have in our fleet. These dump trucks are used for construction and maintenance purposes, and then winter maintenance comes, we put a sander in the bed, and then we put a snow plow on the front. So that's why it's all combined and I guess considered a snow plow. But our oldest truck in our fleet is our number for our street department maintenance is S1. It's a 1995 GMC 10-wheeler dump truck. We're estimated at 162,000 miles on this. Doesn't seem like a lot, but it is the oldest truck in the fleet, 28 years old. We had two trucks. I've been here 17 years with the street department, two old trucks which were identical, S1 and S2. I believe S2 was wrecked and S1 was really struggling, so we took the two trucks and built this particular sander, S1, probably 10 years ago or so. And the gentlemen that built it and authorized this are no longer with us. They're retired. So we'd like to purchase this new truck to replace this truck. It's just getting old. It's pretty wore out. It's costing us some money and time and maintenance, and it's probably not the best picture. I wish I had one up on the screen for you guys, but it's an old sander, and we permanently mounted the sander bed onto this truck, and because it wasn't dependable enough to be a fleet truck and a dump truck, so we just use it exclusively for sanding now, and that's the way it's been for a few years. Our intent initially was to sign a purchase order with Kenworth Trucking through Sourcewell and purchase this truck. And this purchase order was going to allow us to get into a build slot. And they would build the truck for us, 2023, start building it, and we'd receive it in 2024. And our intent was to pay for it and receive it in 2024, which is why we were going to budget for it. Brent and I were working on the budget and including that for 2024. I'm not quite sure of the legalities, but perhaps by signing this purchase order, we're obligated to, I don't know if necessarily pay for it out of 2023, but pay for it and possibly this year and maybe not necessarily in 2024, which is what our intent was. So what we really needed was for Public Works Director approval from you guys and the Public Works Director to sign this purchase order so we could get in a build slot. So as you guys know, through COVID and with all the issues and the supply chain issues and materials issues, trucks were really scaled back and were not being built at the same rate and same pace and are really hard to get. And as you can imagine, some of these big trucking companies, they buy 20, 30 trucks a year. Our little entity wants 1 or 2 trucks a year, if even that, and every few years. So we're not high on the priority list, so it's hard for us to get in there. In the past, when this was not an issue, purchasing was not an issue, and supply chains were not an issue, COVID wasn't an issue, it wasn't an issue for us either, but now it is an issue for us to get in there and get a truck built. So, working with Kevin Kratzberg of, Kenworth Sales, he's, pretty much guaranteed us to get into a build slot, a Q3 build slot, for a medium-duty T480, Kenworth truck. And Utility of Boise would supply the bed, the controls, the sander, and the plow for this truck. So it's basically several components, but two entities selling us one final product, one final dump truck with all the bells and whistles that we need. But they work in conjunction with one another, and so once the truck and the chassis is purchased, then utility will go ahead and purchase the bed and the sander and all the controls. So once the truck is built and received in Boise, it goes over to Utility of Boise, and all the rest of it gets done. The paint gets put on the bed gets put on, the sander and everything get plumbed and get put on the truck, and then we receive it after that. So, yeah, in a nutshell, it's kind of important that we start replacing some of this old fleet, and we do have a schedule for this stuff. Brent and I and my predecessor, Gordon Reed, had worked on this. You know, we're really good stewards of the money. We're really diligent and do our research when we make these decisions, because this truck alone is $343,000 and some change. So we really take that into consideration, and I think at this point we really need to get back to trying to adequately replenish the fleet and surplus old stuff out and get new stuff in. And so that's why I'm here in front of you guys, and hopefully I can answer any of your questions. And yeah.
Yeah, excellent job. Thank you so much, August. Appreciate that. Any questions from any council members? Councilor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. August, it's a pleasure to meet you. Appreciate all that you do, and we don't say enough good about our street department. How extensive is the ongoing maintenance in this truck? And the reason I ask is there no further benefit to this truck if there was another place in the city that we could use it? And in that regard, since the new truck will have its own plow, is there a plow for this truck already?
I don't believe this particular truck has a plow on it. We may have old components. We don't have one on it, and we haven't put one on it for years, but we may have the old components at our shop, that the old ram in the front and the old plow, because we have a couple of old ones sitting there, but I'm not quite sure. Now, this truck could be used by other departments, but I think eventually it's gonna start costing other departments money as well. So as far as the upkeep, right now we keep everything running. You know, it's not any good to us broke down and sitting there. So anything that breaks down, we get it fixed and get it repaired and get it up and running. I think our shop foreman, Stephen Tracy, he gave me some recommendations, and he really felt like that eventually, of course, he didn't give me a time frame, and he is a certified licensed diesel mechanic from Boise State University. He felt like here in the near future it was going to need a new transmission. Perhaps the motor would need to be overhauled as well, and the hydraulic pump that runs all the hydraulics for this system would need to be rebuilt. He didn't give me any quotes or any cost, but yeah.
So it sounds like, in your estimation, you would advise against putting this out at the airport where we have a snow plowing problem, and it costs us $10,000 every time we have to contract somebody to do it, even for a small job like that?
This perhaps could be utilized out there on the scale of a sanding unit in certain locations, like maybe the taxiway or the parking lots. But really to plow the snow off the runway and the taxiways, this would not be a sufficient vehicle.
Okay.
You need several snow plows working in conjunction to really move that snow. It's such a, 100 feet wide or something like that, the actual runway. And you need to start in the middle and start pushing snow to the side and then turn around and go to the other side, which when we did it, when we were better staffed and had the availability, we typically ran 2 motor graders and even a snowplow truck, and we tried to work in conjunction with one another and push the snow off one side. So I just don't think this would be sufficient for that. It could do smaller scale stuff like sanding parking lots and even roadways to a certain extent, but eventually it's gonna,
Okay.
we've rebuilt the bed as well. It's rusted out pretty good, so we've lined the bed with new steel and welded it all down. And so, yeah, we had some pretty good fabricators a few years ago that could handle the stuff like that. So.
Perfect. Thank you. That answers my question.
Very good. Councilor August?
August, it just blows my mind that you've been here 17 years already. I can remember when you were hired. That just kills me. No, I just kudos to you guys for keeping this 28-year-old truck running this long. That's absolutely taxpayer getting their money's worth. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor
Just
Doty.
to confirm is, maybe Ray Lynn will answer, but or Brent can probably now, he's prepared for my questions usually. So, what fund is it coming out of, the street fund?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Doty. It is coming from the street fund. And if you don't mind, I'll just explain a little bit about why the change. This is a new phenomenon for the city to have equipment we order take multiple fiscal years. This one could branch across 2024 and come to us in fiscal year 2025. And so, Raylan and I have worked together, and she has got a method to use, which is a great method. It helps with a lot of the ambiguities that could exist around the issue of having things ordered in one fiscal year and coming in 1 or 2 fiscal years later. And that is that this will come out of the 2023 budget. And so, the resolution that's before you would, if you approve that resolution, you will appropriate the funding out of 2023 for it, and that money is then obligated, although we won't expend it, it'll stay in the fund and keep growing interest as Raylyn has positioned it. But when the truck actually arrives and we pay for it, it's still coming out of the 2023 budget. So that'll help us. And probably the most important element of why that helps us is, in terms of the ambiguity issue, is the Constitution of the state of Idaho prohibits a city council from obligating a future city council. And so we try to keep our obligations all within 1 year, and Taylor could speak more to that, but this helps us solve that ambiguity problem, and that's a solution that Raylyn was able to come up with, so.
Great, thank you.
Very good, excellent. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, August. And I would just echo those sentiments of Councilor Allgood. Appreciate all that you do, the miracles that you do down at the street department. So keep up the great work. Okay, so we have the resolution before you. Is there a motion for approval of this resolution for this purchase?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So a motion from Councilor Doty, a second from Councilor Allgood for the approval of this resolution. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, then the voting is before you. Councilor Register should be up there for you, it looks like.
Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you.
I think it worked. How about that? So 1 for 1. Okay, very good. So that motion passes unanimously. So that moves us on to new business, and I'm going to ask for just a little tweak here to amend our calendar here, our agenda, by placing action items number 9 and number 10. And oh, she's got to stay anyway. So we were going to try to help get Raylyn out of here early, but it sounds like she wants to hang out with us, so we'll just leave it as is. Okay, very good. Well, there's not a lot of people here, so maybe it won't be as long as we thought. So that moves us into, again, new business. We'll go ahead and kick it off with action item number 1. This is the public hearing. Case number is CPM 22-12, Zone 22-5, AMD 22-7, Legacy Falls. And this is a request by BVA Development on behalf of BV Legacy Falls for comp plan map amendment and a few other things that I'm sure the staff will let us know what it is. So I'm going to just turn it over to you. Alex, the time is yours.
We're waiting on Brent.
Oh, come on, Brent. We actually should be waiting on the IT guy, not Brent, but, so he's off the hook, so.
This one doesn't work. Great, so that's weird. Okay.
someday we will have a functioning city council chambers, hopefully in the near future.
All right. Okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. Alex Jones, Associate Planner, 61 Cleveland Boulevard. Today, we are presenting Legacy Falls, a development agreement amendment, comp plan amendment, and rezone. Just to get our bearings, location is the southeast side of Karcher Road. This is at the Florida and Karcher intersection. The character of the area, we are surrounded by residential and commercial. Here we have pictures of the site. Wow. Sorry, I'm a little mixed up in my notes here. Did I miss the application? There we go. Sorry, I missed this one. So for the application request, we have the applicant is requesting a comprehensive plan map amendment on approximately 5 acres from commercial and service to high density residential. They are also requesting a rezone of the 5 acres from C1 neighborhood commercial to R3 high density residential. In addition, they are requesting the termination of the original development agreement to be replaced with an updated development agreement to reflect the requested changes. Staff has provided an updated development agreement based on comments from our legal team, and no conditions were changed. All right. So public services and utilities are available and will be provided to serve the site when it develops. For the 2040 comprehensive plan, we are looking at commercial and service and highway corridor to the east, south, west, and north, along with commercial service to the north. For agency comments, we do have one late exhibit from the public. This is from Rick Reed. Just to give a rundown, they are requesting to leave the parcel zoned C1 due to concerns about traffic and overcrowding of schools. I will bring this up to you. Yeah. Okay, so Valley View School District provided information regarding schools. Idaho Transportation Department, Caldwell Fire Department, and Caldwell Engineering Department provided comments with requirements that have been incorporated into the conditions of approval. Staff shows that the proposal would allow for future development compatible with the area's character. The proposal will transition the commercial uses along Karcher Road and the residential uses to the south. And staff is recommending approval of the request subject to conditions of approval. And I stand for questions.
Very good. Do you mind going back 3 or 4 slides? Right, yeah, that one right there. So just, is it this area here?
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay, I just want to get the basis on where that's at compared to all the other stuff. Did everybody see that? So just that piece kind of down right there is where it's at.
It's just that corner?
Yeah, just the 5 acres, I believe, down in that area, right? So just that area.
As you can see in the southern portion of the parcel, that is the rezoned portion and comp plan amendment.
Okay, very good. Just want to make sure I was looking at the right thing. Okay, very good. Questions from council for Mr. Jones? Okay, very good. Oh, sorry, just Councilor McGee.
Mr. Mayor, and I'm gonna take a little liberty if you don't mind and just ask Brent, it's probably a Brent question. That intersection, just refresh my memory on the Department of Transportation expansion of Highway 55. I recall that the Florida intersection is going to be addressed, not with a stoplight, but with some turn lanes and some other widening mechanisms. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman McGee, I believe, I can tell you what the old plan was. I'm gonna have to double check to tell you correctly on what the new plan is, but the idea was a median U-turn treatment. I do believe that's still integrated into their design, ITD's design, which would mean that Florida, but I think they're still planning to signalize Florida because there's 2 options. One, no left turns at Florida, and then people can right in, right out, go to a U-turn opportunity and go back the way to make their left turn, which is kind of like turn right to go left for a Disney reference there. But I think that their plan actually ended up being a hybrid of that, so you can still go straight across on Florida, and I think they were just going to do conventional intersections for the interim and then move to. I'll see if I can dig that up during the council meeting and give you a for sure answer on that.
That's okay, Mr. Orton. I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that that was going to be addressed as part of the 55 expansion, so.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay, thank you so much. So we have only one person signed up on this, and so I'm not sure if the applicant did not sign up or signed up in the wrong. I only have one person, Del Guest, that signed up in opposition. Very good. So are you the applicant? Okay, we're good. If you'll please come forward, and then we'll have you get your name and address on there. Yes, please. So yeah, Debbie will meet you up at the podium. Very good. So if you will just, so if you please come forward, and then if you'll just state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 10 minutes for your presentation. And I will let you know if you get to the 1 minute mark, I'll let you know when you got 1 minute to go. And then we would ask you to just kindly end your remarks at 10 minutes.
Yes, Tom Peterson, Chief Development Officer with BVA, and the address is 1144 South Silverstone Way, Suite number 500 in Meridian, Idaho. I apologize for not having signed up as required. Mr. Mayor and distinguished council members, I won't take hopefully even half of the 10 minutes, but we are in agreement with staff's recommendation for the approval of this proposal. Just real quickly, if I can note just the history, I think, for the record. We are proposing to amend the comprehensive plan future land use map, as was stated, just for that bottom 5.2 acres from commercial to high density residential. And this was put before the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 22nd of 2023. They recommended approval. There were conditions that were proposed at that time. We agree with those conditions. There was a termination of the existing Legacy Falls development agreement and a new development agreement that was circulated and provided to us, and we agree with those without any changes. As part of the proposal, it would be a rezone as well. And I just wanted to note that in recommending their approval, the Planning and Zoning Commission recognized, I think, two salient points as was set forth in their findings of fact and conclusions of law. And the first of those is that this proposal is consistent with both the policies and the goals of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, as was indicated. Just for just a little bit more flavor there, those goals and policies that were found to be in compliance with by the Planning and Zoning Commission includes the conformance of the basic purpose and spirit of the plan. That it's the spirit of the plan to provide a transition from residential to the commercial. They also noted and indicated that it maintains a high quality of life and livability in the community, which is a stated goal in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. It satisfies goal 3 and 5, which is to create neighborhoods where citizens can work, live, and play, as well as to recognize the importance of retaining attractive basic industries to Caldwell. And then finally, they indicated that this proposal meets the goal of creating a strong sense of community in place through the development of mixed-use neighborhoods, which this would create. Also, the proposal is in harmony with and does not violate any provisions of the city code, as was found and included in the findings of fact and conclusions of law by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So with that background and with an acknowledgement that we have understood and accepted the conditions that have been proposed, we would recommend approval of this proposal And I would, at this point, stand for any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, appreciate that. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stoddard.
Just curious, you have, how many actual, families will be there in that 5.2 acres? Do you know that?
Yeah, I can, sorry, my glasses, I can't see near or far either, actually, so. Councilmember Stadwick, yeah, it's a sad state I'm finding
Static.
Oh, Stoddard, excuse me.
W in there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What's been proposed right now is, and it's conceptual. We certainly don't have any, I mean, that would be putting the proverbial cart before the horse, so this isn't anything in concrete. But what we propose would be, several buildings where it would be, 11 units per floor on 3 floors. So there would be approximately, let me see if I can find more detailed information, sir. Yeah, let me actually, let me withdraw that. I believe that we would have, and I'll do the quick math here. Conceptually, we could have up to 90 units. And I think that it's going to be driven further by really the parking requirements, and that would, I think, drive ultimately the number of units we could have. But 5 acres is a relatively, I think it's big enough, but it's not, I don't think, big enough for any type of a sprawling type development, if you will.
Okay, so 90 units, that's roughly 180 more vehicles. Would you agree with that?
I don't know if I have, again, because it's really at the conceptual stage. We haven't done, and one of the conditions would be that we would have to do a traffic study analysis that would further vet that out, and we haven't even got to that stage yet at this point.
Have you visited that site at all during the busy hours, morning and
I have,
afternoon?
yes, I personally have.
And do you know the difficulties from Florida on to 55?
Yeah, we have, and there is some building, there's a existing building out there, and as we have looked at, as was alluded to, the improvements that will hopefully be taking place on Karcher and Florida to help mitigate some of that. But I have been there both in the morning, and I haven't been in the afternoon, but I've also been there the evening to see how I think those improvements would be greatly appreciated by all those in that area.
And what would be the timetable between your units being finished and the highway department finishing their project on 55? Do you have any idea?
I don't have an exact timetable. I will tell you that in terms of a phasing, the commercial would be part of our phase 1. Phase 2 would be that lower southern approximate 5 acres. And so our phase 1 would be built out, we would hope by 2026, we would start to see some real completion, if you will, or at least some activity. Right now, there's just one existing pad that's been developed up on that commercial section. So that would be our phase 1, followed then by the phase 2. And hopefully that would coincide somewhat with the development of those intersection improvements.
So the commercial part of that, is that going to be on the north side of the canal or
It's on the north side, that's correct.
behind the existing dental?
That's exactly right.
office?
Yep.
Okay. Like I say, the only concern I have again is the number of vehicles. I lived in that area for the last 15 years, and either you have to go down the lake to get on the Karcher, or you have to go up South Indiana to get on a Karcher. And how do we address that problem when you're looking at possibly another 180 vehicles through that intersection?
Yeah, and I think Mr. Static, we are seeing the same thing throughout all of the Treasure Valley. And I think that's why that traffic study will really help to identify the mitigation measures that are necessary that can be implemented to make sure that those exact things are addressed. I think more than ever, as the valley continues to grow, it's incumbent upon us as developer to work with and have these conversations early so that we don't get pigeonholed into a place where no one wants to be, including including a developer who's trying to make a development that is live, work, play, as opposed to a place where no one wants to go because of the traffic. So we, very early on, because of the time frame that's involved in those studies, we would need to be really on the ball in terms of getting that traffic study going to identify the mitigation that would be needed to ease that congestion.
Okay. Last question on the condos, would they be similar in quality and price as exists at the, I think it's called Cedar Crossing Deluxe Townhomes now?
Yeah, and I mean this with the highest level of respect, and I hope it's taken that way. I think it would exceed that quality just a little bit, but I think that's just a function of new materials and new designs that are you know, as time goes on. So I think, yes, to answer your question, they would meet, if not exceed, the quality of the craftsmanship and desirability for those people who would live there.
Okay. And these units, would they border any of the current residential units that are there now, the single-story family homes?
No, they would not.
All right.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry, could you ask that question one more time?
Would they border the existing single-family homes that are there right now?
Oh,
I mean, the backyard?
yeah, no.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Very good, yes, for sure. So just before we go to see if there's any other questions, make sure that I understood this. So the plan is phase one to kind of be finished, the commercial. You hope that'll be done by 2026, and then it would go to this residential multifamily. Is that more or less correct?
Yes, and Mr. Mayor, to be completely clear, what happens in these developments, as we all know, is that it's driven some by the users. And so right now, to be clear, we don't have any commercial users who are in tow and, you know, on the edge of their seats, and we also don't have a residential partner to the south. Is it conceivable that they could run, you know, parallel with each other? I guess that's possible, but as we look at this development and we look at the phasing of how it would phase out, we anticipate at this time that the commercial would be able to phase in. At our North Ranch development, it developed much faster than we would have ever thought. That was a 10-year project, we thought, and it developed in 2 years. We're in different economic times, and so it could be just the opposite, where we think, hey, we're going to go quicker on this one, and that might be a delayed period of time that we're able to actually develop it out. But I wanted to at least, it's our intention to get started on this, and hopefully if things go well, that's the estimated time frame that we would start to see the build out.
Okay, perfect, excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions from council? Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we do have, so nobody signed up in neutral. We do have one person signed up in opposition, Mr. Dale Guest. So if you'll please come forward, and if you could state your name and address for the record, and then you will be allotted 5 minutes for your testimony. And if, when you have 1 minute left, I'll let you know, and then if you could just please end at the 5 minute mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
Distinguished council members and Mr. Mayor, my name is Dale Guest, 15670 Bridgeton Avenue in Caldwell. Okay, so I got 5 minutes. First, can I ask a question?
Yes, for sure. And I'll pause your time on that.
The picture that we had on the screen about, it said kind of fallow land with a fence. There was a picture where with development, yeah, right. So there's some fences there. There are some homes there. This is the area where this development is going to be. That is right behind some of our neighbors. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. This is not just open farmland. These homes are going to be the condos, multi-family dwellings. Now, when we heard about this, I talked to neighbors. Some of my neighbors are police officers in Caldwell, at least one. There have been reported increase of accidents along the 55 corridor, Karcher Road. A lot of that is going to be mitigated by the change of traffic pattern, but that's going to take some time. Narrowing the expansion and contraction of the roads currently, the passing lane that everybody's trying to use that should be a turn lane, that's a problem. That should be taken care of, I hope. But currently we have a impossible situation trying to get across on South Florida. People trying to enter 55 from either the south or the north direction. It's horrible, and it was pointed out before, trying to get on by going to Lake. I think, Mr. Static, you mentioned going to Indiana or Florida. I mean, I've lived in Cedar Crossing for 3.5 years. My wife goes to work, doesn't just visit one day and see some traffic. She experiences the traffic every single day of the week. And it's horrible coming and going. Some of the things, traffic's increased it's very difficult. I mentioned that. Accidents have increased, minimal exit points. We only have a couple of exit points right now out of Cedar Crossing. When the additional exit points are put in, I'm assuming that will happen. That further restricts traffic onto 55, especially during rush hour. It was mentioned that schools are overcrowded already. You put 90 homes or units, two-car, I would hazard a guess that two-car families are maybe a thing of the past. I've seen three-car families. You have additional cars. Widening departure, I don't know that that's really going to solve the problem right away, but we put that many more people in this little tiny area, and you put a stacked 3-floor situation out in that area. I don't know of anybody that I talk to, I do not know of anyone in Cedar Crossing that is in favor of this kind of development in that area, for those reasons. Now, live, work, play, we already have that in that area. But I can tell you, I used to live in Nampa, I've lived around the country, I've seen this kind of a situation where you have a live, work, play area where you've got desirable community, you put some high-rise thing, and then maybe the city likes this, but you put a high-rise development, multifamily development, no matter what kind of quality materials you put into the building, the structure, you put that kind of packed people in that one little place, the desirability of the community next to it goes down. People don't want to live there.
1 minute left.
1 minute.
Yep.
So my experience, and I'm a little long in the tooth, I've seen this happen multiple times, and maybe I just have to get with the bandwagon, get on the bandwagon and understand that this is progress. I don't like the direction this progress is going to take us. So that's how I feel, and a lot of our neighbors are feeling.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for coming. So just hold on and see if we have any questions. Any questions from council? Council Register, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you coming down. With that, Mr. Peterson, you do have the chance for rebuttal if you want to come forward, and we'll provide you up to 5 minutes if you need it for your rebuttal testimony.
Mayor and council, staff would like to make a correction from the site plan that we have in the file. It looks about 45 units are shown on their plan.
Okay.
For future, not actually going to be built right now.
Perfect. I think I understand that. So, okay. Very good. Okay, the time is yours.
So the first thing I need to do is go on the record, and I appreciate the gesture of trying to delicately correct my math. And I do appreciate that sensitivity, but I think it's best to just go on the record and say I erred. And I think I very much appreciate that, but it's important to have a clean record. So it would be approximately half of the units that I originally stated. I think conceivably, again, I want to emphasize that it's conceptual, but the parking count and the conceptual plan that we have laid out would be my count's a little bit higher, but 50 to 60 units. So I sincerely apologize for not being able to have that at my fingertips and then doing math that was erroneous. I also would like to just emphasize that I very much appreciate, the comments that have been shared and the concerns of neighbors. That is something that it just can't be ignored, and it won't be ignored. As we work with traffic engineers and we work with the different jurisdictions to work through those traffic studies, some of those mitigation mechanisms can be costly and difficult, but they do ease some of those burdens. While it hasn't been something, as one example, it hasn't been something that has been approved as of right now, but it is being discussed. As one example, if you look along the screen which is shown, there is a right-in, right-out that's being contemplated along Karcher to the east of the intersection, that would be a shared right-in, right-out with the adjacent property owner that they are also looking for approval on. So, I'm not stating that to suggest that that's the answer, but rather those are the types of things that we're already in the process of investigating. How can we alleviate the traffic? How can we make it so that there's not the congestion? And those discussions have been ongoing for years, in fact, to lead us to this point. As a developer, we would have the same concerns. If you're packing people into a place with no solutions, then you're not going to have a successful development. The only way that these things work is if we're good partners in the community and we try to be transparent and work through solutions at our cost, so that it does provide a desirable place for people not just to work and play, but to live. And so I'm very appreciative of those comments, and would invite that type of feedback from more citizens as we work through this. I don't believe I have any other comments, but again, I can stand for questions if the need be.
Thank you so much. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Mr. Peterson, you're familiar with the Cedar Crossing Deluxe townhomes there, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're familiar with the duplexes that went in there also? That butts up against the property of the single-family dwellings there? Have you seen that at all?
I don't know if I'm as familiar with the actual duplexes, but I do know what you're referring to.
Okay.
Yes.
That particular project came up when I served on the council previously, and they had the fourplexes boarded up right behind those single-family dwellings. And the way we solved that problem is by putting the duplexes in. I would encourage you to maybe look at that, especially with the picture that we just saw where the fencing was, that maybe you should put duplexes along that fence there across the canal, and then build your three-story units, south or north and east of that, because it does protect the single-family units. And one thing, again, my opinion, we haven't really looked out for is people that do have single-family units, and we built these 2- and 3-story apartment complexes without, giving them a chance to have their privacy too. But again, the duplexes on the deluxe Cedar Crossing townhomes did solve that problem, so you might think about that.
Commissioner Stoddard and Mr. Mayor and Council, we will do just that. In addition to that, the way that we have conceptually laid out our site plan to date puts the parking down on the south closest to all of that residential, and pushes the actual structures themselves to the most northern part that we can get closest to the commercial, to provide even more distance and kind of spatial awareness that I think goes hand in hand with what you're describing. So we will most certainly do that.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so I stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. And a second? So we have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Doty to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 Very good. That motion passes unanimously. So that moves us into discussion and any motions on this. Staff is obviously available for any questions that you may have, and then any questions amongst yourself and Councilor Register. We'll not forget about you. So actually, we'll just, if it's all right, maybe start with you. I don't know if you have any questions or comments in regards to this project to start off with.
I don't, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, so discussion for council. Councilor Stoddard.
Want to make sure that if we vote yes on this the way it is now, there'll still be an opportunity to make sure that Mr. Peterson comes back with some of the changes we suggested, and that still has to be made, or how's that gonna work? I mean, I don't wanna vote yes if he's not gonna make changes.
Yeah, so how the code reads today, within the R3 zone, multifamily would require a special use permit, to go back in for a public hearing for that, in that regards.
Okay, all right. So we can vote yes on this, but we still have our reservation, our no vote if they don't follow some of the recommendations we have, right?
Correct. Typically, those would go to Planning and Zoning Commission, but yeah, that would be an additional public
Okay,
hearing.
thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Councilman Stoddard stated the same question I had. We will see this again. I just wanted to confirm that. I mean, it looks good. I don't have any issues with it tonight. I just want to make sure we would see it again before, because everything's been conceptual so
Yeah.
far, and it'd be good to see the final thing, so.
Yeah, very good. Any other discussion or questions or?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanna make sure Mr. Gaston realizes that also. You understand that? Okay.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion.
Yes, go right ahead.
That we consider bill number 41, ordinance number 3435 for case number,
Well, actually, I think you're, so go, jump up one. So we're looking at CPM 22-12, zone 22-5.
I think you just said it all. That, we approve the request by BVA based on the discussion we've had here tonight.
Very good. And that would include the conditions as outlined by staff, I'm guessing?
Correct.
Very good. Amenable for that on your second case. We have a motion from Councilor Doty, for approval of the request with the conditions as outlined by staff, and a second from Councilor Williams. Is there any discussion on that motion? Councilor Register, do you have any discussion?
No.
Okay, very good. Then the machine is open for voting. Very good. And then so all votes are in, votes are cast, and that does pass unanimously.
Now
So-
you're ready for that?
Now we're ready. So
Already?
we do, a motion to close that public hearing item.
Moved.
In a second. Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Now, it's all you.
All right. We'll try to consider bill number 41, ordinance number 3435, case number ZON 22-5, with a request to move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Perfect.
You gotta read it.
Excellent. I do. Do we have a second for that motion?
Second.
Okay, so we do have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval, passage of bill number 41, ordinance number 3435 by title only, and I will read that title. An ordinance determining that certain land lays within the city limits of the city of Caldwell, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be rezoned to the R3 high-density residential zone, determining that said change in zoning is in the best interest of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to amend said property on the official maps of the city of Caldwell, Idaho, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith. So we do have the motion for approval of that in a second. So we will open up the voting. And all votes are in, and voting is closed, and that does pass unanimously. So that does finish that up in regards to that approval and the bill and ordinance, so appreciate that. That moves us on now to new business action item number 3. That is a request for annexation for again, the case file numbers are ANN 22-22 and CPM 22-10 for Copper Point subdivision, I'm guessing, development. So Katie, is this yours?
Yes.
Excellent. Then we'll turn the time over to you for your presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Katie Wright, 621 Cleveland Boulevard, Associate Planner. Before you use case ANN 22000022. Perfect. And CPM 22000010 for Copper Point. This also had an associated case number that went before Planning and Zoning Commission on March 22nd that was approved, SCP 22000029. The project location is 8.53 acres located on the southeast corner of Ustick Road and Florida Avenue. The applicant is proposing parcel to be annexed into both parcels to be annexed into the city with an R3 high-density residential zone. The applicant is also requesting a comprehensive plan amendment to reflect the future designation of the parcels to be high-density residential.
And as I said before, there is an associated SUP with this property that approved the development of multifamily. These are photos of the subject site taken March 3rd. Here's the concept plan for 215-unit apartment complex with a clubhouse and a playground. Staff would like to point out that each building is 3 stories other than the building adjacent to the single-family home down to the south. That was at the request of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you. A traffic impact study was performed and reviewed by the City of Caldwell Engineering Department. The code requires 10% open space, and they're providing 11, equaling a little less than 1 acre of qualifying open space. They'll also be providing an updated landscape plan that will match the adjusted concept plan. Here are a few examples of the possible exterior schemes. The proposed development is compatible with the surrounding existing residential and commercial land uses and existing zones. The proposed comp plan designation and development is consistent with the goals and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. Utilities are or will be provided to serve the proposed site and or are or will be adequate to accommodate the proposed development. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. The only agencies that had concern were Valley View School District, mentioning overcrowding, and there have been no public comments at the time of the completion of the staff report. Staff finds the proposed request is in compliance with the Caldwell City Codes, is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan, and is in harmony with the surrounding land uses. Staff recommends that if the City Council approves the request for the annexation and comprehensive plan amendment, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and order of decision. The Planning and Zoning Commission approved the special use permit to allow for the multifamily development in R3 zone, and that would be subject to the approval of the annexation and comprehensive plan amendment. The Commission recommended approval of the request for the annexation and comprehensive plan amendment, that such request is subject to the conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision, along with the addition of the following conditions. The building to the southwest, immediately adjacent to the single-family residential property, must not exceed 2 stories, 25 feet in height. This has been met with the submission of the revised plan, and the applicant shall work with the staff to add more masonry to the exterior design of the buildings, and staff has not received an updated elevation at this time. And I stand for questions.
Excellent, thank you so much. Any questions from council for staff at this time? Okay, yeah, Councilor Williams.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Brent, this is probably more for you than it is for Katie. We're seeing the widening of U-stick down by the boulevard up to Lake. What are the plans for the future for U-stick continue to be widened? Because that, again, is traffic congestion. We're repeating ourselves, but it bears repeating, especially U-stick in Florida, where we're putting a roundabout in this year.
Yeah.
And so there's some concerns I have about amending from medium density to high density already, just given what's happening. So I don't know if there's a question in there, but do you hear what I'm putting out there, and can you give me some help?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council Register, Councilor Williams, I know who you are. Sorry. But Diana's just really on my mind. I apologize. The U-stick is what I would describe as our highest priority surface street corridor. We have state highways that we're talking separately from those. U-stick's the only road that extends from the Boise River on the far side of Boise to the Snake River beyond Caldwell. So it's an extremely important, regionally important road. It is intended to be widened to 5 lanes. It's a principal arterial, which means it's the highest classification in Caldwell's current functional classification schema. And it is intended to be widened to 5 lanes anywhere development occurs and ultimately throughout Caldwell. The roundabout going in will be built in such a way to accommodate that 5-lane build. What we did at Indiana, and it's of course being expanded now, but we built a a single lane roundabout because that's easier for people to get used to, and that was our first roundabout in Caldwell. Now it'll be expanded to a 2-lane roundabout. Once people have a single lane down, a 2-lane's pretty easy. And so that may be the direction that we would end up going, but we're trying to build these so that the 5-lane structure can be accommodated throughout. We don't have a project within the next few years to do that widening. We are relying on development to happen and developers to make those widening improvements as they build. It is, though, high on the list, and that's, of course, why we asked the Urban Renewal Board to consider the project, which they ultimately funded to widen from the boulevard. So we have just a small gap to close between that widening improvements at the boulevard out to the interstate. To Middleton Road, we have a small gap to close. It's already widened from Middleton to Midway. And then we will be working on coming back from Lake towards 10th. So, did I answer your question?
It does, thank you. It still leaves me with the same concern about the ongoing need for consideration of traffic and congestion, and especially that area. It's difficult for me to comprehend at this time.
And Mr. Mayor, Councilman Williams, this is an excellent, important concern. As we get to the budget process, we will show you an outlook with proposed timelines for the widening of Ustick Road. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just to dovetail a little bit off what Councilor Williams says, I can't tell you how many phone calls I get with concerns from our citizens about, it seems like we're a city of medium to low density to high density, all the time. Almost every proposal that comes through is that. I'm just wondering whether with our planners and zoning department, whether we need to look at that relative to maybe an ordinance that we might have to look at to make sure that we don't get way ahead of ourselves on this as far as medium to low density to high density homes. And maybe, I don't know if we prohibit that or what we do, but we can sure get behind in a hurry with all what's going on as far as developments are concerned. So I don't know if you folks have any comments on that, but it's a big concern of the residents and mine too. I just, like I say, almost every proposal we have goes from, medium to low density to high density, and I think somewhere in time we're gonna have to bring that to a halt and have the original, whatever the plan was, medium or low density, and leave it at that. Otherwise, we're just, traffic is bad the way it is, and it's gonna even get worse. So something to think about. And if you need to call me, holler. So thank you.
Very good. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. Any other questions for staff at this time?
Mr. Mayor,
Oh, yes, Council Register.
I do have a couple of questions. I don't know if this is the exact right time to bring this up, but this is at Ustick in Florida, is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
So I'm wondering if, while we're going through this, if maybe Brent or somebody can pull up. I know we just put in apartment buildings at Ustick and kind of like maybe closer to Montana, between Montana and Indiana. And then I believe the council approved apartment buildings at Ustick in Indiana. And then again, another project just east of there on Ustick. And so I'm a little bit concerned about all the high density projects that are going in on Ustick at the same time as well. Not just with the traffic, but with the schools and all of the stuff that we've talked about in the past. But I do think it's important to keep in mind what's already been approved and going in there before we start talking about another one. So I just kind of wondering if we can point out exactly where those are to this one.
Yes, thank you. And Brent has pulled up the aerial, and maybe if you could use your mouse, Brent. First, if you could show this project that is on for discussion right now. Further east, let's see. And then if you could do it with your mouse, Brent, so that Council Register can see it at home, because you won't be able to see that.
So the project that we're discussing right now is right here. Richmond Heights was approved a little bit ago, which is right here. Maybe
I know there were some apartment buildings that went in over the past year to the west of there, to the west of where you're at, kind of in,
Down by the charter school area.
yeah, kind of in that strip right there between like Montana and Indiana, I believe. Like down on the south of Ustick. Like right in, no, just go up a little bit. Well, they come right in off of Ustick, so I don't know the exact,
I think, so those were built, they were approved a few years ago, but I think those were just completed within the last year or two, so I think those are, is that correct? Council Register right there that you're talking about?
yeah, probably, but, yeah, just that, those were just completed pretty recently, right, like in the last year, 6 months or so, and then we're looking at that big one at Indiana and Ustick, and then the one you pointed out, and then there's another one, I believe, that was approved somewhere right in that same area, but I can't remember exactly where.
Okay. So did that show those areas for you, Council Register? Did you have any other questions?
Well, I don't know where the other one is that that was approved probably about, it was approved right after the one at Ustick in Indiana, like the next meeting or the meeting after that.
I think it's right south of that one.
Exactly, right south, exactly.
So Brent, can you highlight this parcel right here for Council Register?
Yeah, it's next to that diesel repair shop.
So right there.
Okay. Well, so anyway, I just want to keep in mind that there's building that's going to be happening there. There's going to be building that's happening at Ustick in Indiana on the north side. And now we're looking at another build at Ustick in Florida, if this goes through. That's a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate those comments. Council Williams, did you have a
Yeah,
question for
Brent,
staff?
maybe this is a good time for me to bring up what we were talking about anyway, because I think we need to go on record to make sure everybody understands where we're at with wastewater treatment and with water supply. I didn't mention that to you specifically, but if everything were built out that we've approved already, and these that we're considering, where would we be at in our ability to handle wastewaters? And help us understand where we're at, where would we be at, if you could, if those were done?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and City Council, Councilor Williams. Currently, the wastewater treatment plant does have good capacity. We are running about 7 million gallons a day, and our wastewater superintendent, who you'll get to hear from later, is here, and he can speak to that as well. But the capacity of our wastewater plant is 18.5 million gallons a day. That's not, so it's a little more than double what we're flowing on average. But the capacity, if we get an awesome food processor or some big industrial user, or a number of them, right? We had an industrial user that was really remarkable, that would have used 2 million gallons a day. So that's a big bite out of that capacity. And then the change in that, you've probably seen with the growth from 40,000 residents in Caldwell to pushing into 70,000, or 69,000 is the last official population estimate. You've had an increase at your wastewater plant from probably an average flow of 5 million gallons a day to the 7 million gallons a day. So you've got some room for some residents, and you've got some room for commercial industrial. You probably want to make sure you're preserving margins for both of those. And the plant is, so that's where the plant stands. As far as the water goes, and there's another element to this too, and that's sewer lines, sewer trunk lines. So the development, the growth is pushing us hard on sewer infrastructure, and we're working hard to try to keep ahead of road improvements and things, so we're not tearing up roads later. In fact, the change order that you approved on the consent agenda was in this general area to get water installed before intersection improvements were installed. We would have done that work ourselves, but we just don't have the man capacity to do that, because we're working on the farmway extension and other stuff. So in terms of water, you also have your water superintendent here. So we're good on water, but we have to keep adding infrastructure on water. We're gonna need to add The north allocation area, we know we're gonna have to add a well there. We know we have to add another well down in zone 4, which is the higher area in Caldwell down close to the lake. And so, with that, I'd love to answer any other questions. And Terry, do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Counselor.
Counselor Allgood.
This, I don't know whether this is for Brent or for Katie. If this were to go in, what is the traffic mitigation on U-stick requirement for this development? Are they required to do any widening, or what would they be required to do there?
So any development adjacent to a classified road, the city code requires that road be upgraded to its classified standards. So this is a principal arterial, so they need to build it to the standards associated with that. So that's a 5-lane section. They would build their half of that section. So if they're building on just one side of the road, they would build the south half, let's say, in this instance, of that section. And then if the north side develops, then that section gets developed as well. And then by the time you're done, you've got a complete road section.
So they would have to build to meet our final roundabout, however our roundabout ends up being developed, they would have to build to meet that standard?
Yeah, actually, what we usually do with the roundabouts is we ask them to mitigate and contribute what they would have used for constructing the curb and gutter. And then they're also helping with intersection. And so they've got to either build something, or they can opt to provide funds in lieu of building something. Because roundabouts done poorly, and I'm not accusing that developers wouldn't do roundabouts well, but it's just, we hold the reins on roundabouts to make sure that they're designed and constructed in a way that the public finds them comfortable, understandable, and usable. So we would ask them to leave the space. There's extra right-of-way associated with the roundabout, more than the traffic signal or our standard section. So we usually make a deal with the developer to provide the extra right-of-way as part of their mitigation of their traffic impact.
So they would do mitigation on Florida and U-stick on their boundary and assist with the roundabout to some extent financially?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Stoddard.
Mayor, Mr. Allgood, there was a bill in the legislature relative to developers participating in, to offset some of the school expense for new schools and everything. Did that thing ever get past somebody's desk and voted on, or where's that at?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so it's gonna probably be next session before,
Yeah, I don't think it ever saw any light.
because like say Valley View is, behind the curve on all this stuff, so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Very good. Okay, any other questions for staff at this time? Okay, very good. So we do have, so we don't have anybody signed up in opposition or neutral, but we do have 3 people signed up in favor, one that wishes to testify. So Michael and Jennifer, and is it Nye, last name? I got it right. How about that? So they are signed up in favor, but to not testify. And Mr. Nate, is it Heintzman? 2 for 2. I better quit while I'm ahead. So if you'll please come forward, state your name and address for the record, and then you will have 10 minutes for your presentation. And I will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and then we would again ask that you please end your remarks at the 10-minute mark.
Okay.
Okay.
My name is Nate Heintzman. I'm 2582 North 27th Street. Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you for the opportunity to present our development for a quality multifamily project. We're here today to request approvals for the zoning designation R3 Comprehensive Plan Amendment to high density residential, and also for approval of a special use permit. Caldwell, Idaho is a vibrant and growing community, and a growing population demands housing options that grow with it. According to census data from 2020, Caldwell's population was 60,482 with an annual growth rate of 5.2%. This puts Caldwell's population projected at about 16.44%. I believe we heard from staff that population was about 69,000. This is the 70,000 I have listed up there is a projection. So I appreciated staff mentioning what the population is in the last statistics on that. But this is to highlight
the growth rate of the city of Caldwell and the need for housing that is coming. Also, in response to the comments by council members is about the funding for road upgrades. The Nye family will be participating in that funding for those road upgrades on that. Here's the site plan for that development. This is Copper Point is a multifamily development designed in compliance with state and city Caldwell development codes and fair housing guidelines, along with future development of the planned roundabout intersection at South Florida Avenue and East Ustick Road. The site will have 8 12-unit buildings, 4 24-unit buildings, 1 2-story 8-unit building, and that is the one that was in discussion in the southwest corner there. That is right next to the single-family home, as requested by planning and zoning. We also have another we also have 1 2-story unit, which is a 16-unit building that is in kind of the center island with the clubhouse and playground area there. So we will have 2 2-story units in this development on that. Those will help maintain the 215 units that we have developed on this site, or plan to develop. The parking ratio on this exceeds the minimum of 1.5 spaces per unit with 1.73 spaces per unit, which will help provide parking for everyone on the site and not outside of it. Floor plans are all designed for all accessibility standards, along with bicycle parking in the building and on site. Each building type has a mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. They'll have balcony and adequate storage. Per planning and zoning, as discussed earlier, we did put the 2-story building that is an 8-unit building right there next to the single-family home. We are also doing vegetative plantings along that property line as well. That's just to kind of help create a visual barrier from the single-family site to our multifamily site as well. See also traffic study numbers. There was a traffic study done on this, and this project will add 90 trips for the morning peak hours, 113 trips for the PM peak hours. And this is all at full build out of the property. And that will be for a total of 1,460 trips per weekday. We've also upgraded our elevations. So this is for the 2-story buildings that are going on the site there, and we did upgrade the masonry on the buildings there themselves. Before, we only had about a few of the walls on the ends and the front with stone on them. We kind of created a wainscot of stone all the way around the building, and then we also created more stone at the entryway to kind of add a little bit of modernity in there with the traditional design of the building. The traditional designs of the building is to kind of mirror the traditional design of the homes and communities around that area as well. So here's with the 3-story units. Similarly on that, where we did add some more stone in those areas on that. Mostly all the way around, but also with the added stone at the entries there as well. And there's just another design option with that as well. So we have made the necessary upgrades from Planning and Zoning Commission on that. We do have a planned construction completion in 2 years, and that will be after the construction of the roundabout in that area, so that those 2 items won't be clashing on that. And then I also wanted to thank City Council members and the Mayor for hearing our proposal. We look forward to a collaborative working relationship with you, and I stand for any questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. And just for the record, as of April 1st, just approved this at Compass yesterday, our population is 69,910. So that is the official number as of April 1st, just so we all know. So kind of in between your 2 numbers. So very close to 70,000. Very good. So real quick before I turn over to council, I don't know if you go back to the site plan, are you planning on, are you proposing any covered parking for the spaces in the development?
Yes, we are proposing covered parking on there. I don't have those, I'm trying to see, the numbers are listed there as covered parking on there. You can also see, noted in dashed lines, on there, it shows where the covered parking will be on that. And that is per city code of how many covered parking and how many accessible spaces, will be covered as well.
Excellent, thank you so much. Questions from council? Yes, Councilor Doty.
So I'd like an explanation where we come up with 1.5 parking spaces. So that means for every or 2 homes, you get 3 parking spaces. I think all of us sitting here can look around our homes, there's 2 to 3 to 4 cars per home. So I simply don't think there's enough parking, and especially with a covered parking, then those are usually rented or higher. I don't know how you're going to do it, where that's specific to an individual. So it just seems like there isn't enough parking for as many housing units that you're going to put in there. I just think that 1.5, and I don't know where we get that number from, but to me, it's a ridiculous number, and it's not accurate. So if you could help me understand that a little better.
Thank you, Councilman Doty. For the covered parking portion of the question, we do have 1 covered parking space per unit on that. So that's how we came up with those areas where all those covered parking areas are. As far as the number of 1.5, we tried to exceed that as much as we were able to fit with our density and unit calculations on that. And so we were trying to exceed that as much as possible, while allowing for the garbage containers there as well, and also fitting in the amenity for the clubhouse. We were able to fit as many in there as we could on that. So we're sensitive to that, so we do understand your comment, that, yes, absolutely
Kate,
more could be
real
needed.
quick, Katie, do you mind touching on that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I just wanted to address that. So going back to the question of how much covered, they do have 215 covered spaces, and their total is 372, which equals about 1.7 spaces per unit, which is over what's required by code. We technically do have a max in the code for how much parking can be provided per unit, which is 2 spaces. So there is a little bit of a constraint, if you will. I just wanted to make sure to address that.
Yeah, and the minimum is 1.5 for
Yes.
apartments.
Yes.
So for homes, it's 2, and
Yes.
that comes off of studies for years from traffic engineers, things like that show how many parking spots should be required for different types of housing, different commercial. So the 1.5. So this fine gentleman did not come up with that. It's in city code from multiple traffic studies and engineers that come up with those numbers. So that's where that number comes from.
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't know who comes up with these, but every house in my development has more than 1.5 cars. There's not a half a car parked outside anywhere. Sometimes 3 and 4 cars. If you have teenagers there, all of them have a car. The parents have a car. There's work cars. I just don't think 1.5. I get that people a lot smarter than me have come up with that number, or the code says that. That doesn't mean that we can't change that at some point. I've lived in complexes with minimal parking, and people park just like we saw the other day in front of fire hydrants. They park in the handicap spots. They end up winding up the road and parking every which way where traffic gets congested. And as you know, parking enforcement becomes a very low priority with the other crimes or incidents that we have in our city. Nothing against you personally. I just don't think 1.5 spaces adequately addresses how many vehicles our society now drives and has per household. So I have 2 myself, just alone, and I won't put the council under any pressure to say how many they have
cars we
sitting
have
here.
each.
I doubt any of us have 1.5 though.
My kids count my Leaf as a half a car, so I probably do have the 1.5. So
The closest, but it still takes up 2
Yeah,
spaces,
yeah.
right? Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Stradek.
Have you, addressed the situation as far as the overcrowding the schools at all? Did you talk to Valley View?
We did not talk to Valley View. We do understand that there have been several school bonds that have been up to vote and that those were voted down, and we are cognizant of that and aware of it and sensitive to that, but we don't have any control
So
over the
no
electorate.
monetary participation at all?
No, not as of
Okay,
yet.
thank you.
Other questions from any council members? Okay, there's no rebuttal, so this is your last chance for questions for
I
the
find it
applicant.
interesting that there's 108 bike parking spaces. Got plenty of bikes parking spaces, that's for certain.
Yeah, there is.
Will never be full, right?
Very good. So any other questions for the applicant? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. As I mentioned, there's nobody signed up in opposition or neutral, so I would stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing.
So moved.
So we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard, a second from Councilor, was that McGee or Councilor Allgood, to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
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 That motion passes. Very good. So that moves us into deliberation for the council. Again, any questions of staff staff is always available to answer any questions, and any discussion among the council members. Councilor Allgood.
This is, it just kind of drives me crazy a little bit. In my opinion, these multifamilies are good for these infill, these small pieces of property on major arterials. But man, it would just be good if we had a comprehensive map that we were not changing all of the time. That we had this stuff lined out, because just like tonight, we're kind of, as Councilman Stoddard said, we're just kind of changing and plugging these things in, which makes me feel like we're not doing things in an organized manner, which bothers me. And I don't want to cause any hardship for developers coming into this city wanting to put things places, because it costs a lot to do that. But at the same time, I struggle with just taking 30 minutes to make, like this big of a thing when we have not decided how we're gonna develop out the city. Anyway, this is the maximum of high density in this location, in my opinion. It's bothering me some because of how high a density it is.
So before, if you don't mind, Councilor Williams, I'm gonna put our planning and zoning director on the spot to kind of follow up with Councilor Allgood's comments there in regards to just an update on, because I know kind of what he's alluding to is the comprehensive plan map. I know there's an update that we've been talking about looking into. Do you mind just giving and just can be a really brief update on kind of where we're at, what the plan is projected to look again at the entire city, how we've developed, so we don't have to do so many of these, and where kind of we stand on that process?
Sure, Mayor and council members. We are looking at doing a comprehensive plan map update. We're currently in the process of kind of outlining what that schedule can look like, and timelines of how long it's gonna take us to get through that process. We're also just waiting to fill a couple staff positions to help us with that overall task of that comprehensive plan update. But we will be looking at the entire city. Some areas will be focused on a little bit more, because we know obviously that those areas are really out of, I should say, they're not in alignment with the city's values as far as what we want to see in those areas. So we will have some focus areas, but we will be looking at the entire city and going back and obviously making sure to update the comprehensive plan map, making sure that it's up to date with any changes that have happened concurrently. And that may mean that maybe somebody hasn't come in for a comp plan amendment, but they outright were able to develop something and it already developed as, say, low density residential, but maybe we had it where we wanted it medium density. So if that's already been developed and we don't see redevelopment happening, then we'll go back and change that on the comp plan map. We're also looking at some code amendments that'll be coming before you guys to potentially allow multifamily in some commercial zones, which will hopefully maybe help with some of the issue of multifamily being, directly impacting single-family residential. And we're proposing that will be by a special use permit that will require council approval on a case-by-case basis. So we're hoping that will give us some more opportunity for mixed-use developments that'll have that multifamily and commercial for that true live-work feel. But we're hoping to have that comp plan process started within the next, I would say, 2 to 3 months.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much for that update. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to start with what is the positive of this, because I want you to hear it again from me, and I want the developer to know I really appreciate a lot of the concept, the thought that's gone into it. It's a nice development. It's a really nice development. And so I want to commend the developer and staff on that. At the same time, my big hangup really is the amendment. And especially in this area that we're in, on Houston, Florida, it's going to be difficult for me to want to move ahead with an amendment to high density. So kudos on the work, but I'm struggling here.
Other discussion or any questions or? Councilor Register, did you have any comments or any questions of staff?
No, I don't have any questions. I just am also concerned about the area and, everything. I just echo everything that everybody already said.
Okay. Katie.
Mayor and Councilman Register, I just wanted to address some more of the developments that maybe you were thinking about over off of, I believe it was Indiana and U-Stick. On the southwest corner is Greenmont Sub, which was approved, and that is supposed to have 11 commercial lots up along U-Stick, and then single family down to the southern portion of that. And then just right across Indiana over there on the southeast corner, the plat is expired, but that was for Hoshaw.
Okay, very good. Does that all make sense, Councilor Register?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, very good. Other discussion or any questions from any other council members? Any motions from any council members?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I echo what Councilor Williams said, but, get back to where I'm starting here. I would make a motion, well, first of all, we've got to make a motion that we close this public hearing, or did we do that?
So we did. We closed the public testimony portion of the hearing.
I would make a motion that we not approve this request based on too heavy of concentration, for this area. I would make a motion we do not approve it.
Second. Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor Doty for denial of the request. And for that, the reason, and I appreciate you putting in that reason, that's important. So it was, again, just kind of state that, make sure to correct me if I'm wrong, is just too much for this area for this time. Just not the right time, right place at this moment.
That's correct.
Okay. Very good. So we do have a motion for denial of the request and a second. Discussion on that motion, either for or against.
Just want to make it clear when we vote, a yes would be a denial.
Yes, that is correct. So a yes vote is to deny the project. Any other discussion? Councilor Register, any discussion?
No, thank you.
Okay, very good. Then voting is open for all council members. Okay, now the voting is open. Okay, so all votes are in, so voting is closed, and that motion does pass unanimously. So that does, again, as was mentioned, that is for denial of that project. And then if that does make action item number 4 a moot point for that, since that request for the annexation was denied at this time. So that does end that. So I would actually, before we move on, ask for a motion to close that public hearing item, action item number 3. In a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Allgood to close public hearing, action item number 3. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And again, as stated, action item number 4 is moot, since that was in regards to the annexation that was just denied by council. So that moves us to action item number 5. This is for case number CPM 21-2, annexation 21-14 Zone 21-5, and SUB 21-41, Arrow Rock Farm. So with that, I'll turn it over to staff. Katie, is this you as well? Very good. So it's your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Katie Wright, Associate Planner, 621 Cleveland Boulevard. Before you is case ANN 21000014, CPM 21000002, and SUB 21000041 for Arrow Rock Farm. This application was heard before the Planning and Zoning Commission on March 22nd, and there's the associated case number SUP 21000015, which was approved. The subject parcel is approximately 35.2 acres located on the northwest corner of Karcher in Indiana. No. Please hold. Okay. The applicant is requesting to annex with a zoning designation of R2 medium density residential on approximately 10.99 acres and then highway corridor on approximately 26.93 acres, along with a comprehensive plan map amendment from highway corridor to medium density residential and for a preliminary plat. As I mentioned before, there is the associated special use permit to allow for construction of the townhomes in the highway corridor zone. The applicant is proposing a density of 4.31 dwelling units per acre with 9.51% open space and amenities. A total of 152 residential units are proposed, consisting of a mixture of single-family homes, townhomes, and fourplexes. 2 commercial lots and 15 open space lots are proposed. Access is proposed onto Indiana Avenue with connections made to the subdivision to the north. The proposed is currently zoned in Canyon County. The site is surrounded primarily by residential uses and zoning designations. This is looking north and northeast from the southwest corner. Looking southeast from the northwest corner and looking south from the northeast corner. Looking southeast and southwest from the northeast corner. Utilities are or will be provided to serve the proposed site and are or will be adequate to accommodate the proposed development. The proposed comp plan designation and development is consistent with the goals and policies of the 2040 Comprehensive Plan with the approval of the Comprehensive Map Amendment. Public agencies were notified and asked to provide comments. I do have a late exhibit if I could approach the bench.
Me approach the bench.
Sidebar.
Thank you.
And this late exhibit is a revised engineering memo that has updated information on traffic mitigation. The only agency that did show concern was Valley View School District, mentioning overcrowding. There were 2 public comments made. Steve Brooks responded in opposition with concerns about transportation capacity in the area and crash fatalities. And Darlene Peterson responded with concerns about density and infrastructure. Based on the site information, staff finds that the proposal is compatible and transition for the site and may provide goods and services to residents in the area. The proposal aligns with 3 goals and 8 policies in the plan. Staff is recommending approval of the request subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Staff recommends that if the City Council approves the request for the annexation a comprehensive amendment that such request is subject to conditions as specified in the findings of facts, conclusions of law, and order of decision. Again, this did go to the Planning and Zoning Commission March 22nd, and they did approve the SUP associated with this, and then they recommended approval for these applications as well. And I stand for questions.
Very good, thank you so much. Any questions from council? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Katie, help me understand highway corridor. I think I do, but I don't want to make a mistake. So what is highway corridor, and what are we giving up by amending this to medium density?
Mayor and council, so from my understanding for highway corridor, Robin may be able to touch on this a little bit more later on, but highway corridor is something pretty much promotes great uses along those highways, where some smaller businesses may not be necessarily the best for that area, and residential kind of along those back areas work compatibly, if you will, depending on density. I don't know if Robin has anything that she would like to address.
Mayor and Councilman Williams, Katie is accurate on that. The highway corridor zone is really a zone that's supposed to have a mix of land uses to complement the highway corridor. So it might have some of your larger retail uses along that frontage area, but can also accommodate a mix of, more dense residential with that highway corridor zone. So what you would be, do they have commercial along the frontage? Yeah, so, and this is a PUD, right? Okay. So really, you're still accomplishing commercial along that highway corridor. You may just be losing some of your land space for higher retail or commercial uses, the larger uses that require more parking lot or whatever. But they still are providing some commercial services within that highway corridor. And I don't know if Mayor, if you have anything else to add to that, since you kind of served on the planning team when that was developed.
Yeah, no, I think you hit it pretty good. So it kind of provides, for that, those allowed or different uses and kind of higher density, things of that nature, higher, whether it's residential or commercial. So I think you hit it pretty good.
Where's the commercial at on there, Katie?
So if you can see this area. Two corner lots.
Do you mind showing on with the mouse for council register? So that's, let's see, that's north, south, east. Corners go down Brent to right there where the green is at. So those would be the commercial lots, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so Mayor and Council, for the record, just right there on that corner.
So that's
Long Karcher.
So I'm not sure.
Indiana's on the right-hand side.
Yeah.
There's Indiana and the Karcher's on the bottom.
That's what right above it? I'm sorry.
This is not this is unplatted, Commissioner, sorry, Councilman.
That's still somebody's house.
That's a home, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor, all good.
I'm wondering what type of commercials expected or planned for that. Is there a type of commercial plan for that spot?
Mayor and Councilman, I am going to defer that to the applicant. They might be able to touch on that a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Okay, so we only have one person signed up for this item, so that is Bonnie Layton, signed up in favor, is the applicant's representative. So Bonnie, if you'll please state your name and address, and then you will have up to 10 minutes for your testimony. If you do get to the 1 minute mark, I will let you know, and then we'd again ask that you end your comments at 10 minutes if you have not done so before then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Bonnie Layton. I am with NV5, located at 690 South Industry Way in Meridian, Idaho. 83642. I'm actually standing in for Jane Suggs, who was the original applicant under GEM State Planning, if you ran across that name in the application documents. I do want to thank you for your time this evening and for all the help that staff has provided in bringing this application forward. A little bit of history: this application was submitted quite a while ago, and I don't believe any of the current staff, other than Brent maybe, but the current planning staff was not part of the team at that time. So there were some decisions made in terms of what type of application, special use permit, comp plan map amendment, instead of doing a planned unit development. And that was all based under the guidance of the previous staff that was in office. Ultimately, we believe we're achieving the same goal with either route of application. And with that, I am here before you this evening on behalf of Trilogy Development and Endurance Holdings, requesting that you approve our applications as outlined. And with that, I will get to the project. So this first slide shows obviously the location. We are at the northwest corner of Indiana Ave and Karcher Road, Highway 55. Excuse me, to the north, you can see that we are bordered by Kingsview Estates, and then to our kind of west, northwest, we are also bordered by Quail Ridge subdivision. The last of those homes were completed in 2018 by the same builder. We also have the Deer Flat Caldwell lateral that runs through our site. So as staff had mentioned, just a quick look at our future land use map in this area of town. So you'll see in white is identified where our project location is. Again, we are designated as highway corridor. We are surrounded by 2 residential subdivisions to the southeast of our site, on the southeast corner of the intersection. That is a large cemetery, but the rest of the parcels are also designated as highway corridor. Let's see. This third slide shows a little bit closer view of how our site plan integrates in and connects with the existing residential that has been developed. And I do also want to point out for your reference, the image on the left side of the screen, really showing the bluish purple are all city properties that are within the city limits. So we are surrounded on our north, on our east boundary, and then also coming up from the south. So this parcel of land is really quickly becoming an enclave in the city, being surrounded by city limits. So the timing of this development, we believe, is on point, along with some of the other improvements that I will discuss shortly. So as staff mentioned, our project site is 35.2 acres. We have a total of 152 residential units. We are providing a mix of units as well as a variety of open spaces and amenities to enhance the project and make this a very livable community for its residents. As staff mentioned, we do have 2 commercial parcels, excuse me, in our southeast corner. That's really for service. We're not envisioning a C-store. We think that's too much traffic, but a local accountant office, maybe a dentist office, something that's a little less traffic volume. With this, we don't have any users spoken for, but we are reserving that, understanding that that's highway corridor. Additionally, with this site, we are not permitted to take access directly off of Karcher, Highway 55. And so that also dictated sort of what uses would be most appropriate. Commercial uses would like more direct access. So, of course, we've put the commercial areas where it would be most easily accessed for people visiting those businesses. Let's see. So one of the things that constituted our need for a comp plan map amendment was our adjacency to the 2 residential subdivisions to our north and to our west. So as you saw on the slide from staff, we are requesting just a small portion of that be rezoned to medium-density residential so that we could provide for those larger lots as a buffer in part of this overall plan. That was the only reason why we are requesting that. Excuse me. Let's see. So in addition to that, then we transition into 60 townhome lots as we move sort of southeast through the site. And then also the fourplex units along the southern boundary, sort of buffering up against Highway 55. Of course, there's a large landscape buffer, but so transitioning that density from a higher density at the corner, lower density as we move to the northwest. Let's see. In relation to Highway 55, we had initially submitted a plan to ITD for their review. They required that we make some modifications to accommodate the anticipated widening of Highway 55. So we went back to the drawing board and reworked that plan. So that took several weeks to do as well. And so what you see before you accommodates those comments from ITD. And let's see, also you'll notice that we take primary access off of Indiana. Of course, we will have frontage improvements dictated by the city's design standards and our traffic impact study, and we are in compliance with those and have worked with city staff to make sure that those needs are met. There was some discussion at the planning and zoning hearing that right now traffic is stacking up there. I think Rob McDonald did a great job of explaining the timing of the lights right now, but once Highway 55 is improved, the timing of the light coming down from Indiana would change, and so some of the congestion on Indiana will go away. Let's see. Additionally, there was some discussion about parking, and I wanted to touch on that. We have on this site 2.63 spaces per unit, so we exceed the parking requirements. We've also, in that, we have regular parking spaces, a couple of EV parking spaces, and of course, handicap parking spaces. So this is the single-family residential lots. This is the area that we were requesting the comprehensive plan map amendment just to be able to provide that buffer to our adjacent residents and make sure that there is a nice transition in density. The townhome lots, you can see this is where they're located more central to our site. And then the fourplex units down at the bottom for your reference. So again, just a little bit more discussion on ITD. We know that traffic is a concern for residents and obviously for staff in the city in general. This is taken directly from ITD's website. You will see that there's a note in the top corner. They're really looking to be working on this and completed in 2024, and that fits within our timing. We aren't looking at certificates of occupancy. If we are approved and everything goes in an orderly fashion timeline-wise, we wouldn't be having residents in our community until 2025. So plenty of time for Highway 55 to be completed.
You do have 1 minute remaining,
okay.
Just so you know.
And then I do want to touch on the school district question. I do want to say that, and this was something that we presented before the Planning and Zoning Commission, the owner of this property has agreed to, and I have a copy if you need it for the record, a signed agreement with Valley View School District to donate 12.6 acres for a school site. So the cost of land these days, that's a pretty significant donation, and also helps to provide much more of an immediate impact, positive impact for the school district, not having to go out and secure that land. Of course, we know there's a bond election coming up. Hopefully the residents will see that there is a real need. That happens May 16th. It from what I understand, there will be 2 new schools, 2 new roofs, and no increase in property taxes. I think that's a pretty significant feature for the school district to be able to do that. But anyways, we received unanimous approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. We even had a comment that this was a superb development, that this is what they look for developers, and with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Very good. Thank you so much. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilor McGee.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor and Bonnie. I just want to make sure that I understand, because I don't think I got this right. But I'm looking at the map, and there's a yellow box on the southeast corner. Is that that's not the school donation property? What does that designate, Bonnie?
That's just, so there's an out parcel in our kind of, our property is, that 12-acre donation is in a different part of town.
I
but
see.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah.
just looked up there and I saw that was outlined, and
Yeah, no,
a parcel for a developer to go to a school, but that's neither here nor there.
yeah.
Now, I talk a little bit more about that, if you don't mind, Mayor, if I can ask a follow-up. Bonnie, talk a little bit more about that. So the developer is donating a parcel of land to be used for the construction of future schools? Is that?
Yes, that is correct, Councilman McGee. So the developer Endurance Holdings and Corey Barton has met with the school district. They have worked out an agreement that's been executed. From the agreement that I have in front of me, it will be off of Knott Lane and Highway 2026. Again, they worked with the school district to figure out what would be a good location, and based on what land holdings this property owner had, to be able to work with to contribute to the need for expanding the school facilities. So, yep.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions? Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You touched on it, so I'll ask you, but I might need someone else's help with this. That commercial right there on the corner of Indiana and the way it stacks up, will that be a right out, right in only at that intersection, or do we know? Because I'm envisioning some problems with people coming out of that commercial and trying to turn left, especially when they are stacked up at the light. The other thing that potentially concerns me is I don't want to see something built and sit empty, neither do you. And if traffic can't get to it, businesses aren't going to want to be in there, even if it is just a dentist office. So the access to that, I'm envisioning being the next street up. There's a lot packed in there. First of all, do you know if that's right in, right out there?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Williams, I would have to just review the plans really quickly. We do have a turning lane that I know we have to accommodate to get onto Highway 55. Long-term plan, I don't know. Brent, maybe you could speak to that in terms of what the overall design would be.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Williams. The way the city code does have dictations for when an intersection or an access point has to be a right in, right out, and that is if it's within a certain proximity to the intersection. I don't know if, I have not reviewed the engineering staff report, and I don't know if that's what's been identified here. But I will tell you that when traffic congestion or needs for modifications occur, an intersection can be converted to a right in, right out. The highway jurisdiction has authority for safety reasons to make that modification. So if it became necessary to keep traffic safe or functional here, it could be, whether or not this is proposed as a right in, right out, it could be required to be changed to a right in, right out.
Mayor and council, if I may, the revised engineering memo actually does address it, and that it is designed to be a right in, right out access only.
Okay, very good. Other questions?
Mr. Mayor, just a comment.
Yes, Councilor Doty.
Certainly appreciate you working with the school district, so if you could pass that along to everyone that's invested in this. So I certainly appreciate it, and I'm, based on the other council members' discussion, I believe they do too. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good.
I think
Yeah,
it's important.
and yes, Councilor Elgin.
Just a comment as well. I believe we heard another subdivision a month or two ago where the same developer, different location, used the same donation to the highway, to the school district. This is not the first subdivision that this donation was referenced to, just to be clear. Also, just from my point of view, these busy highway corridor areas, I think commercial is appropriate. That's a high priority to me. So I'm glad it's minimal commercial, but to me, having commercial along this highway is important. So if you pass it on as well, I appreciate it.
I will.
Very good. Any other questions, council, for the applicant? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. And as I mentioned, Bonnie is the only one signed up. I guess you just brought Taylor for his looks tonight, so. Mr. Merrill, it's good to see you. Okay, so with that, I'd stand for a motion to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. In a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Williams to close the public testimony portion of this hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Very good. So that moves it into council for discussion. Questions of staff, always applicable on that. So if there's any discussion at this time from council.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I'd make a motion that, sorry, I gotta get back there again. We approve this, request.
Very good. So we have a motion for approval of the request. Do we have a second? So was that from, yes, so we got a motion for approval from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor McGee for approval of, again, it's case number CPM 21-2, annexation 21-14, zone 21-5, SUB 21-41 for Arrow Rock Farm. Is there any discussion on the motion? Councilor Register, do you have any discussion?
I don't, thank you.
Okay, very good. With that, the voting is open.
Mayor, may
Yes.
I confirm that includes the development agreement as well?
Oh, yes, thank you so much. That would include the development agreement and then the conditions as outlined by staff.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And the resolution, yes, ma'am.
And the resolution. Got it all in there, I think. So, okay, very good. And so, yes, that does pass unanimously. All council members voting in favor of the approval of that request. So then I stand for a motion to close this public hearing item.
So moved.
So we have a motion from Councilor Stoddard and a second from Councilor Allgood to close action item number 5. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And that moves us into action item number 6, and this is for consideration of bill number 61, ordinance number 3380 in regards to the annexation request. Do we have a sponsor of that bill and ordinance?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I'll sponsor bill number 61, ordinance number 3380, and move for its approval and approve the summary for publication.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor Stoddard for passage of bill number 61, ordinance number 3380 on its first reading by title only, and I will read that title at this time. An ordinance determining that certain lands lays contiguous to the city limits of the city of Caldwell, county of Canyon, state of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed to the city of Caldwell, Idaho, as part of the HC Highway Corridor and R2 medium density residential zone. Declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the city of Caldwell, Canyon County, Idaho, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the city of Caldwell, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the clerk of the city of Caldwell to file a certified copy of the ordinance and map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, state of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215. And voting is open, as you can see. And voting is now closed, as all votes have been cast, and that passes unanimously. And that moves us on to action item number 7.
Mayor,
Yes.
may I, ask a question of our planning and zoning people?
Yeah,
before we move
definitely.
forward?
Yep.
One of the things I'm missing, and maybe I'm not finding it, typically when we move for approval or disapproval, we have some language here that we read. That I'm not finding that. Is that included somewhere that I'm missing, or? Where is it at on here? Cause I've done 2 of these and I missed the language.
Mayor and Councilman Allgood, it is in the Exhibit 1, called Findings of Fact, Conclusions of Law, and Order of Decision. At the very end of that Exhibit 1,
Okay,
before the signatory page.
I didn't go far enough.
It's okay. I am actually gonna make a cheat sheet for you guys to have at the next council meeting, so you don't have to look in the packets for it.
Okay, good, excellent, that on mine too, where you click on it, it used to just pop right up, and
Right.
now it's the whole thing that pops up, so.
Yeah, thank you.
And totally, I mean, like how we did it tonight is totally appropriate. I mean, you can keep it as simple as just a motion for approval of the request, or you can read it out, so either way is appropriate on that. But yes, thank you for that clarification for that question. Okay, so, this is for, and I think, Debbie, I think you're gonna present this one, is this right? For chapter 4, this is in regards to the cemetery up at Canyon Hill. Okay. Oh, or was Taylor gonna do it? Rock, paper, scissors. Loser has to do it, not the winner. Attorneys always talk too much anyway, so. Clerk.
Gotcha. Mayor and council, this is an ordinance that just kind of clarifies and helps staff with kind of housekeeping issues. You'll recall a few years ago, quite a few years of research went into looking at how old some of our cemetery lots were that were never occupied, that had been purchased. Councilman Static, you were here during that period. And 200 and some lots had been purchased years ago, over a 30-year, actually over 50 years at that point. We kind of drew the line in the sand. And then they reverted back to the city so that we could either resell those and offer them again to the public. Since that time, the ordinance actually states, and of course, part of your documents that were provided to you tonight shows you what is called a certificate of license to inter and for perpetual care. It's a standard provision that we have offered those lots in a time period to be occupied after purchase in a 30-year period. However, sometimes those are purchased by a family member thinking long-term down the line that maybe they'll purchase them for each one of their family members. And with that, a 50-year period would be more applicable, often with that in mind. This ordinance addresses that we would change it from the 30-year period now to 50, but not go beyond that, so that if someone comes in and says, well, you know, I'm at the 30, how much more can I extend that? We could extend that another 20 years, but 50 years would be the maximum at that point. So our license to inter document would be modified at this point from new purchases to state the 50 years, and then we would work with individuals that are asking for an extension on the 30 to include a 50-year maximum. Does that answer possibly any questions? I'd stand for any other questions you might have.
Are there any questions from council? Okay.
Mr. Attorney, are we okay with that? All right.
I was just gonna say, I remember too, that sometimes, or some situations, we couldn't find the owners of some of that
We
property.
could not, that's right. Oftentimes, we tried every method in the book that we could. And that's why we had 200 and some reversions back that we just offered again to the public. And quite frankly, some people were waiting for those areas because they were in the older part of the cemetery, and some people loved that older part of the cemetery and wanted those, but were never able to acquire parcels in those or burial lots. So that made that available to them. But we do have a reserve now that are being rotated through our cemetery office, offered first for those that would like those. Okay?
Councilor Rims, I think, had a question.
Madam Clerk, just
Yes.
for my curiosity more than anything, what do we do with those special circumstances? I'm thinking of the Stunenberg and extended family that has a lot of lots purchased there and still do. After 50 years, do they have to purchase them again?
Well, we work with people on that, but yes, technically what happens is they revert back to the city. But sometimes what we've also found is in that period of time that somehow, you know, they miss the notification. We put it to all kinds of different media and they miss that. So maybe, you know, a family member finally was notified clear back in, you know, New Jersey or whatever, that, hey, we found out that this lot, and it possibly it's been resold since then, but knowing that we try to accommodate the public,
we often have offered them another parcel in that immediate area if we can, or just to relocate in another part of the cemetery. So we're pretty lenient in trying to accommodate family needs, but oftentimes what's happened in those families that have purchased several lots, you know, they've moved out of state, the children have relocated, the grandchildren don't even have an idea, or great-grandchildren, that those lots were even purchased by great-grandpa Jones back there, and so they really do not have an interest in those lots and have contacted us since and said, no, just go ahead and offer those to the public. And of course, the purchase price, it's a list situation, so they're offering it on their behalf. They would acquire the funding for that if they're wanting to do it that way. We help sell that for them and then provide them the funding from that sale.
Thank you.
Okay?
Very good. Any other questions for Debbie? Okay, do we have a motion or sponsor of bill number 14, ordinance number 3498, and for its approval?
Mr. Mayor, I'll sponsor bill number 14, ordinance number 3498, and request a move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Very good. Do we have a second? So we have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval, passage of bill number 14, ordinance number 3498. And the voting, any discussion on that motion? Okay, the voting is open. I don't think. Do I have to read all of these, attorney? On this one? Okay.
City, I bought a cemetery lot.
Okay.
Filled it with family, bought another one, filled it with
I don't think,
family.
I think we're good.
So,
Wow. Councilor Williams, you were up before it even came on. I'm impressed. Okay. Very good. Councilor, there we go. So all votes are cast, voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. Could we take a 5-minute quick break? Is everybody amenable to that? Okay, so we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back to take on action item number 7. Magic button, I think. Going? Okay, I see a thumbs up. So we're moving on to action item number 7, bill number 14, ordinance number 3498, and we're going to bring Debbie back up again.
Bill number 8.
Oh, sorry, bill number 18, ordinance number 3502, pertaining to the relabeling of alcoholic beverages consumed at Indian Creek Plaza, with request to move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
We can
Mrs.
either
Geyer.
one there.
We're good. We're good. She's up there.
Yeah.
Attorneys are good at that too.
Mayor and council, this is a request that actually came to my office through one of our council members. Council President Doty had been in touch with one of the Destination Caldwell leadership, and they had made known to him that there had been probably some discussion among their staff about a waste of cups that was required per code that they use whenever that they're distributing alcohol through their license that they have for Indian Creek Plaza. And the license actually had required that the use of an opaque plastic container, not labeled or branded, by any alcohol manufacturer to distribute such alcoholic beverages. And so their request was to be similar to other plazas that are in operation, especially, well, example, Boise and the Grove, that when they serve alcohol beverages, they're using the actual container that it comes in, which actually probably is a safeguard for Destination Caldwell and the holder of their licenses there, because they know what they're stocking at their alcohol beverage counter. And if there's other brands that are coming on the plaza in that container, now they know that, no, you did not receive that from our counter here, and actually you're not able to consume that within our space here. And so it's been probably a good move on their part to recognize that. And then it's an environmental issue as well, to help them to save dollars and help us cut down on litter everywhere with those opaque cups. So this would just help with that. in correlation with some big events that are coming up. Cinco de Mayo is coming around the corner, so we've assisted them in providing this before you tonight to help in preparation for some of their forthcoming events. Is there any questions that you might have?
Any questions from any council members?
Question.
Yes, Councilor Ogden.
So, I don't know what all they serve there. Do they serve beer on tap there at all, or is it all pre-container?
Yes.
It's all pre-containers as far as
Beer
I
and,
know.
beer and wine
They may have an
is
event
what
there,
their
but
license is,
sometimes
yeah.
it's not. But
Mhm.
they have to get a special permit for that. But what the plaza serves is all in a container that comes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to drink there more, I guess.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Mrs. Geyer. We appreciate that. Okay, so, that is all signed up to testify on that. And so before you, again, is Bill number 18, ordinance number 3502. This is amending Chapter 8, which pertains to the relabeling of alcoholic beverages consumed at Indian Creek Plaza, with a request to move for its passage by title only and approve the summary for publication. That is before the council.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor Doty.
I'll make that motion. Do you need me to read it all again?
Very good.
Consider bill number
Yeah.
18, ordinance 3502 for passage by title only and approve the summary for publication.
Very good. So we have a motion from Councilor Doty and a second from Councilor McGee. Again, this is for passage of bill number 18, ordinance number 3502, by title only on its first reading. Any discussion on the motion? And then with that, voting is open. And voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. So that now moves us on. So, that moves us on to number 9. Consider resolution authorizing the execution of a professional services agreement with Carrie Foster for services pertaining to CDBG. Ray Lynn.
So Carrie, was our employee. She moved to another state, and we've had this position open for quite a while. And, currently we still need to manage this grant. And before we hired Carrie, this is how we managed it, was through a contract. And we're still hiring, but the reason this is not on a consent is because this is currently not budgeted. So, we're asking for budget authority on top of this because we still do plan to hire somebody and have Carrie train them, within the community development block grant. This is federal funds, so this is not any general fund, so.
Very good, excellent. Any questions for Ray Lynn? Yes, Councilor Allgood.
I wasn't aware Carrie left. That makes me sad. I like working with Carrie. Did she go to work for Elizabeth?
No, she did not.
She did not.
No.
She, moved to
Moved to
Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
to be with her
Oklahoma.
sister.
Why would you do that on purpose?
Yeah, good question. Her
Maybe
sister
it was
there,
on
so I have to
accident.
ask her sister, why did your sister move there?
Okay, so Carrie left us. We don't have anybody to do CBDG?
That is correct.
Okay, if I said those letters right.
You got it close enough. They were all in there.
And so she would train somebody from afar?
Yeah, so once we get somebody hired, we've been trying to recruit somebody. Actually had an interview scheduled for tomorrow, and they backed out because they got another job. So we just keep trying to hire and recruit, but currently we don't have anybody. So she will continue to fill kind of the position as a contractor. So not as an employee, but as a contractor, and we'll have a vacancy until we fill that position. And so we will pay her through the contract as a vendor, and then, when we do fill that position, then she'll train the new employee. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, very good. Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Okay, so then, do we have a motion for approval of this resolution?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Doney and a second from Councilor Allgood for approval of the resolution. Again, this is authorizing the execution of this professional services agreement with Carrie Foster for services pertaining to CDBG. Any discussion? The voting is open. And voting is closed, and that passes unanimously. That moves us on to action item number 10. Consider resolution authorizing the approval of a new job description for a purchasing coordinator within the finance department using ARPA funds. Mary Lynn.
So, I'm bringing this before you. So, as you know, we currently don't have like a purchasing department. Each department kind of does their own purchasing. And what I have found out is that we are very spread out. So, there is not any conformity, and we get prices from all over. So, I'm currently helping police with their body-worn cameras, and so it takes a lot of staff time from a lot of upper staff time, I should say. So we have department heads that are working on purchasing, and there's a lot of costs that we could be saving potentially. So I'm asking for this position to help get some contracts, to get some policies in place to help with purchasing, and to help with some of the ARPA as well. So this will be both ARPA funded and then also through my department. So it will be through the admin allocation.
Very good. Excellent. Any questions from council for Mary Lynn? Yes, Councilor Williams.
Just probably a comment more than anything. I really believe we'll save money, that this position will pay for itself, because of the savings when we get strategic about purchasing. It concerns me, but I don't want to nickel and dime every week when we're approving, but just speak to Amazon for me for a minute, because who can purchase? I know it has to be approved by whoever they're, but everybody's buying from Amazon, and it's easy and it's fast, but stuff like that concerns me.
So yeah, there's not really any specific that I have found, like any specific contracts that we have per se. Like, we do go through contracts, we do go through bid, but for say office supplies, a lot of people just go to Amazon instead of, same with tires, we do just go to the nearest vendor. We don't necessarily have a contract that we go and we say, this is the best price that we can get for and this is the maximum price that we're going to pay for tires. So that is what a purchaser will do. And then when we go to replace tires, we will have that contract in place, and we will have cost controls in place. So.
Very good. Excellent. Thank you so much. Any other questions?
Just a comment, Mr.
Yeah.
Mayor, 100% supported. I think it absolutely will make a difference. And all the stuff that we're researching on our own as council members to try to find the best deal, then someone can be dedicated to that and be good stewards of our tax dollars. So I think it's a good idea.
Very good. Thank you so much. I really appreciate Mary Lynn and bringing this forward. So on that. Okay. With that, is there a motion for approval of this resolution?
So moved.
We have a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Stoddard for approval of this resolution authorizing a new job description for a purchasing coordinator within the finance department. Any discussion? The voting is open. And all votes are cast. The voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. Okay. Now we are on to 10A. Sorry, we probably should have done you guys sooner, so you could have got out of here, but you got to hang out with us for the night. So this is, again, was moved from consent calendar number 4 to new business number 10A. This is approved resolution authorizing the purchase of new influent fine screens in the amount of $229,000 to be used at the wastewater treatment plant. So we get to be educated about sewage. Bring it on. So this is Tony, by the way, those that don't know. He is our wastewater treatment superintendent. I really appreciate Tony and all that he does out there. So
thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. In front of you, you do have the resolution for the purchase of 2 influence screens. I was put together a couple of pictures yesterday to kind of explain a little bit better about what we're dealing with out there. The current influence screens that are there are approximately 20 years old. It is kind of the first step in the process for cleaning the wastewater as it comes into the plant. Each one of those screens is currently rated for a 12 MGD peak hourly flow. As you guys have all been seeing and discussing, the growth out here in Caldwell is just going through the roof. We have currently rebuilt the 2 existing screens 3 times now in the past 3 years. The rebuild cost for each one of those through West Tech is approximately $103,000. The brand new screen that we just had quoted from Huber Technologies is $114,000. There is a small caveat with this. We are currently in the middle of a facility plan update. As you would have talked about the growth out here, and our projected peak hourly flow is going to be estimated approximately maybe 19 million gallons at a peak hourly. So with the current condition of the screens, we did put in to replace both of them, with the thought that we would at least put one of them in if we got into a real pickle, a real tight bind within the next year or two, while limping that one along, or the existing one along, that we could project where we're gonna be. We do have Keller on deck right now doing our facility plan. We would look at what it would take to re-engineer each of those channels to increase that capacity to roughly 19 to 24 million gallons per channel. But that would take a significant flow study, capacity study. We would probably look at multiple different technologies to ensure that we are doing the right thing for the city. You know, like I say, we want to be as prudent as possible, so asking for both with the caveat that we will definitely use one and just kind of keep the funding available for the other in case it was absolutely needed, while we get through this study to expand and create more capacity in the influent channels.
Very good.
Questions from anybody?
Excellent. Any questions?
We did put some pictures together, and I did kind of clean them up a little bit so that we didn't have to look too much at what really gets caught up in the screens, but it does show the amount of damage that was done. We did hire a young man who, quite honestly, was the best fabricator I've ever seen in my life. I couldn't believe that he was able to straighten that unit out and rebuild it back to somewhat usable capacity. He took several of those lamellas that you see there on the left, which are the steps that move the debris up the screen and then into a discharge pipe. He cut and fabricated several pieces together to make one off of old bent, twisted ones that we've had from years past of rebuilds. That's what the screen looked like at the end after he got it put back together. That 4-inch stainless steel tubing was bent, twisted, cracked in several spots. He was able to straighten it, weld it. We did fire it back up after we installed it. We did put flow to it and run it under load, and it does have a couple of aches and creaky spots in it, but it does remove the solids, and it is there for a backup on a as needed basis. But that's why we put in for two. I do want to be transparent with the council that I do know that the flows predictions are coming, and so to say that I want to buy two and then come back to you in 5 years from now and say, I need to buy two more and go through a large undertaking to re-engineer that whole channel would be, I wouldn't feel good about that. So I would take any questions if anybody has any.
Very good. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Augustine.
So, I'm kind of keying on this. We need one, but we're buying two, kind of in case. What is the delivery time? If we say, okay, you can buy, how long will it take that to get to you?
Right now it's about 24 weeks out. I have spoke with Huber on numerous occasions. We can probably expedite a little bit, maybe 16 to 18 weeks at a best case scenario.
So if we approved one and we needed two, we would be out 6 months or?
Correct.
Other questions? Okay, very good, excellent. Then,
Let me just throw, if you don't mind. So the resolution that's before you, if you approved it as written, it would authorize us to be able to buy 2 of these. The intent, to Tony's point, is that we would buy them only as needed, if needed. And then I do need to add just a little, and by the way, just wanted to recognize Tony. I was busy fiddling with the computer, or else I would have introduced him and just told you this. Tony has created for us a reputation with the DEQ, with the Department of Environmental Quality, of transparency and compliance. He's a great partner with them, and he's doing a great job. So you got an excellent wastewater superintendent. These channels, to Tony's point about re-engineering, these channels were designed originally with what's called grouted infill, which is a spot where we can knock that grout out, and so we've got a wider channel. And so that's why Tony's talking about later on adding, that would take these from 3-foot screens to 5-foot screens. So if we can limp along, maybe we can come back to you and ask for 5-foot screens in the near future. And then one other thing to be aware of is, because of the nature of the treatment plant and the risks associated with public health, safety, and welfare, the treatment plant is an area where if we ran into a real emergency and we weren't lined up to be able to come and ask you, we would go ahead and do something, and we'd come back and ask you to ratify it. Only because if public health, safety, and welfare is on the line, and or if compliance with our wastewater permits on the line, we have to be able to react. So, you could chide us, or you could say, hey, did you do the right thing? And we would be ready to stand accountable for that. But that is something to know, that just because of the nature of the treatment plant, and frankly, the same is true of the water system, keeping the water system safe. So, thank you.
Good, thank you so much. So we do have this item before you. Again, this would be the new 10A on that. So do we have a motion, or is there any discussion? And if not, is there a motion for approval of this resolution?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Allgood.
I would move that we approve the resolution.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion from Councilor Allgood and a second from Councilor Doty for approval of resolution authorizing the purchase of new influent fine screens in the amount of $229,000 to be used at the wastewater treatment plant. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, voting is open. And all votes are cast, so voting is closed, and that motion passes unanimously. That moves us on to action item number 11, consider acceptance of the finance report. Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the accounts payable in the amount of $2,145,991.97, represented by check number 168903 through 169181, and payroll for the amount of $575,478.20, represented by check number 38481 through 38505, and direct deposits be accepted, payments approved, vouchers filed in the office of the city clerk.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Yes, so a motion from Councilor Williams and a second from Councilor Stoddard for acceptance of the finance report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Get to the button faster enough.
We're waiting patiently. So, very good. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So that moves us on to council reports. Councilor Register, so we will start with you this evening.
Yeah, sorry I'm not there. I'm still trying to recover from this flu that I think everybody's passing around. But I don't really have too much to report tonight, other than I just wanted to, I'm sure, like everybody on council, just offer my personal condolences to Corporal Johnson's family out of Nissa and the Nissa Police Department and everything that's been going on there. And it's just an awful, awful, awful thing that's going on there. And I would say a whole bunch of stuff that would probably get me in trouble, so I'll just end it there. But I'm very glad that the suspect was caught.
Yes, thank you so much. I think, yes, we all echo those sentiments on that. So thank you very much, Councilor Register. Councilor Stoddard.
Yep, we had some problems with our parking lot at the Caldwell Veterans Memorial Hall, and we got a bid that was unbelievable low, because I think part of the labor and everything the guy's gonna donate to us. And I wanna thank Brent for working with Mr. Harrell on getting that approved, and so we can get it fixed. And the other thing, as much as we enjoy Mrs. Register's company, I do enjoy the extra room this evening at the council seat, so thank you.
You know, I specifically told Debbie that I was not coming so I didn't cough all over you, so.
He might appreciate that just as much as the extra room, so, very good. Counselor Doty.
I think that the Counselor Register summed it up for, what my opinion would be for the Nissa Police Department, so that's all I have for tonight.
Very good. Thank you so much. Counselor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a short list. Let me speak quickly. First of all, I just want to mention on the consent calendar, $1.5 million was approved for a water line, and we didn't talk about it, but I want everybody to know that was essential because water wasn't included, sewer was, but to do it during construction rather than tearing up a roundabout after we build it to put it in made a lot of sense. And questions were asked, the funds are there, Brent's on it, and I just wanted to make sure on the record everybody understands why that was on the consent calendar. We approved it. I want to talk about this that was on the fire department's Facebook page. Someone alluded to it earlier. There was a fire over at the homes off of, well, it doesn't matter where it was, but Lancelot, I'm sorry. The fine for this is $10. The fine is $10. I would love for us to ask our city attorney to go to work on amending our code so that the fine for this is at least equivalent to the fine charged for parking in a handicap zone, unqualified. And I would suggest that we add language that authorizes the city to tow immediately when they see a vehicle parked in front of a fire hydrant. I think that would be something, this was a problem, and you can see they were able to use the hose nonetheless, but it was marginal. So I don't know if that's something we can direct them to begin to look at for us now, or if we need to put that on the agenda to discuss it later.
Yeah, our attorneys can definitely start looking into that and move in that direction.
Thank you. That's my list for tonight. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Counselor Allgood.
The county, assessor put together a report on, urban renewal and the impact of the, reallocation area closing and all that. And I just want to express my appreciation. They did a great job. It was extremely informative. I definitely got something out of it, and our urban renewal area brought much more economy to our city than what we ever planned on it. It's amazing, 1.6 billion in growth. It's pretty amazing, but I just want to say I appreciate Brian bringing that information forward and showing us what it did.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I heard it was great, and so I appreciate you attending. I know Raylene was there. I was gonna be there. Sorry to not show up for you, but I talked to my brother. He's like, you're okay. You'll be fine. It'll be good. So, but yeah, so glad. I think Counselor Doty was there as well. So I heard it went really well. So, Counselor McGee.
Your brother can send us a slide.
There you go.
Nothing tonight here.
Very good. Thank you so much. And I don't really have anything tonight either, so just appreciate everyone. Council Register, we wish you the best and that you get feeling better. So we are in process, if not already, you should have today sent some flowers to Nissa Police Department as well as to the family on that. And I know the police department did that as well, so want to recognize Lieutenant Wright, who's here this evening with us on that. So appreciate you being here, Dave, and staying with us to the bitter end. So with that, we actually do have an executive session. So it stands for a motion to go into executive session, and please do include in your motion pursuant to which Idaho code we are doing that. Do that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilor McGee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we move into executive session pursuant to Idaho Code Section 74-206 subsection 1C for the purpose of discussing the acquisition of or an interest in real property not owned by a public agency.
Very good. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor McGee and a second from Councilor Doty to go into the executive session as was stated in the motion. And the voting is open for that. What do I, executive session? Yes, a yes.
The thing I seconded.
Hey, Council Register, are you still there?
Working 3 jobs here.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Seeing how we could get another one.
Okay, so are you able to vote on there still, or?
Let me look, sorry.
No, that's all right. And if not, we can do a voice vote for you if we need to. So, there we go. Okay, everybody's in, and that motion passes unanimously, so we are moving into executive session. So, Terry, thank you so much for being here. Tony, appreciate you, on that, and everybody.